It is a happy hour Friday edition of the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, live video streaming on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel and our Twitter feed. I am your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning is producing today's show. You out there, what is up on a Friday? We've got so much to dive into. I love a Friday show. It's a little bit more carefree. Some of you have already maybe jumped into the sacrament on a Friday edition. That said, we've got Eagles and Raiders today. Some news around the Eagles I will dive into in just a little bit. We've also, holy moly, we've got a Sixer home opener tonight against the Brooklyn Nets. We got news around Ben Simmons and the Sixers. Yes, new news has emerged in the Ben Simmons saga. I know everybody's saying, what else? What other turn can this thing take? Well, I have the latest for you right now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. How are you, my friends? Oh, boy, I feel like, we do the show 4 hours. We hang out together. We go back and forth. We agree. We disagree. We like each other. We don't like each other. And then we go back at it again, and we kumbayas, and we're all friends, and we start back over the disagreement. And I'm imagining today, with the latest Ben Simmons news, there's going to be a lot of disagreement out there. As some sources indicate that there was actual progress made today in repairing the relationship between Ben Simmons and the Sixers. He essentially stepped up, talked to the team, addressed the team, spoke with with Doc Rivers, spoke with Joel Embiid, and essentially took some responsibility. Now, not all responsibility. He did say, look, everybody has to take accountability for the loss, myself included. He will not play in the game tonight. He has said to the team, look, guys, I am not mentally ready to play. That was what he said. So the whole back problem, that whole situation, I think that was just kind of added into the mix. He addressed the team today and essentially said he is not mentally ready to play. When will that happen? I don't know. But Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid last year won 35 of 42 games they played together last year. It's the best of any team in basketball. They won 83% of their games when those two guys played together. When Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid were on the floor together last year, they were 35-7, 83% of their games. The next closest team, they're in town tonight, Brooklyn. When Kyrie and James Harden played together, the Nets were 22-5. They won 81% of their games. The Philadelphia 76ers, when healthy, had the best duo in basketball. Yesterday, Daryl Morey reiterated, and he stressed, and he said it from the bottom of his heart. We will not trade Ben Simmons for role players. I've maintained all the way through that I don't think that they are going to move him for role players. And Daryl Morey essentially confirmed yesterday that they will not trade Ben Simmons for role players. And you know what? It makes sense. Because Daryl Morey knows what I've been telling you. They could add 3 more role players. Role players don't win titles. All-stars do. You don't like Ben Simmons, but guess what? He gets voted into the All-Star game every single year by NBA coaches. They like him. You don't. Daryl Morey agrees. I'm not trading him for role players because what's going to happen? You're going to send me 3 role players, and then what? Now I'm going to have problems with too many guys not getting enough playing time. And then when push comes to shove, I still don't have what I need. The player to take the big shot in the big moment. Now, Ben Simmons might not be that guy. He's not taking the big shot in the big moment. We know that. But neither are the 3 role players that most people want for him. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, 609-403-0973. That is the text board. Don't forget, download the free mobile app, and you can message us right through the app on your phone. It's free, thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle. And, of course, your messages, as always, on a happy hour Friday, Eagles, Raiders. But I want to start with this text message from Tim in Millville, all right? He says, Morey has got to be bluffing here. Let me assure you, Tim, Daryl Morey's not bluffing. Daryl Morey's playing the game, and his message across the bow is this: come up with a different avenue, because we are prepared to have him sit here for 4 years, unless, and he said this yesterday, Daryl Morey said this yesterday. He said, we are not trading him for role players. We will trade him if we think we have a good deal on the table. And right now, we don't have a good deal. So if it's between these choices, trading him for role players that aren't going to help us win a championship, or keeping him and hoping that he gets back in the right frame of mind, Daryl Morey is saying that he will take the latter. So, Tim, Morey's not bluffing. Morey, in his mind and his opinion, he holds the cards. He has hand here. Tim in Millville goes on to say, no way he can hamstring this team for 4 years under the salary cap during Embiid's prime. That wouldn't be fair to Embiid, the team, or the fans. I still think he gets moved at the trade deadline. I still think there's a playoff team without Ben, but not a championship contender. If Morey doesn't get the difference maker back for Ben, does he take a bunch of role players, expiring contracts? Tim, the answer to that, he gave it to you yesterday. The answer is no. He's not taking back role players, because role players don't win championships. The Sixers have a lot of role players on this team. They've got Tyrese Maxey and Andre Drummond and Georges Niang and Danny Green and Tobias Harris. Those guys are, they're not all-stars. They don't need more of those guys. There's not enough playing time for all of those guys. If they just sent 3 more role players here, there's not enough playing time for those guys to make a difference. Daryl Morey said it yesterday. Buckle in. This could take a long time. This could take 4 years. And I don't think he's lying. Do you? 609-403-0973. Another day, another twist and turn in the Ben Simmons versus Sixers story. But this one's interesting. Simmons will not play in the game tonight. He met with the team and medical professionals and even the team and Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid. And he told them, this to me is the first step in Simmons getting some credit. For all the shots that have been fired at Ben Simmons and how unprofessionally he has handled this, he finally did something right. He told his team, I am not mentally ready to play to my expectations. Now, whatever those expectations are, I think it's, I don't want to get booed, and I'm not ready to go out there and get booed. I think Ben Simmons is saying, let this thing play out. Let me let this thing play out. Maybe the team will be 500, somewhere around 500, not meeting expectations. And then I come back and save the day. That's the play, in my mind, of how Ben Simmons' team sees this. You sit out, let the team perform. Look, they won the other night. But realistically, what are the Sixers without Ben Simmons? Probably, a good team, not a great team. A team that says we need something else. We need an all-star player. And that's where Ben Simmons says, guys, I think I'm ready to play. And when the Sixers are 12-10 or 10-12, and Simmons all of a sudden comes back and helps the team, what happens? Then the fans say, oh, man, this Simmons guy's not all that bad. We kind of need that guy. Proof is in the pudding. the number one team in the league when those two guys play together. Now, shallow people like this text message right here would say that's their regular season record. We get that. We understand that Ben Simmons did not play well in the playoffs. But what we would say is the guy that you got in the playoffs is certainly not the same player that you get in the regular season. The answer to unlock is why? Is it because Simmons just stinks in the playoffs? It's a possibility. Is it because of some of the things that were going on in his personal life? It's a possibility. Guess what? I'd like to find out. I'd like to see him play with a clear mind and get back out there with his teammates, as Tobias Harris said today. Tobias Harris essentially, Georges Niang was asked a question today about what was said, and he said, that's in the locker room. We're going to leave that in the locker room. Tobias Harris, though, went to Twitter and said, we will respect his privacy and space during this time. When he's ready, we will embrace our brother with love and handle our business on the court. That's all. That is it. That is all. That is what Tobias Harris tweeted today. Yesterday, Daryl Morey tried to really drive home the point that this has not been a distraction, that the team is not distracted by this. I kind of find that hard to believe, but at the same time, they're professionals. And we'd say, look, they're professionals, but they're also human. You know what? They have routines. They do their daily routine, and they get up, they go to the Camden facility, they have somebody stretch them out, they dribble the ball, they shoot, they practice, they get worked out again, they go home. And if Ben Simmons is there or if he's not there, that's just the same minutia that you put up with at your job. I show up here. Some days I come in, nobody bothers me. Some days I come in, I get an email that ruins my day. Sometimes I get here, I get an email that throws my timeline out of whack. That's the Sixers with Ben Simmons right now. Your boss sends you an email that you're like, are you really sending me this email on Friday at 3 o'clock when I was happy hour Friday? And I'm thinking that the weekend's here, and you sent me that email? That's Ben Simmons showing up to practice and not wanting to practice. Joel Embiid's like, I came to do my job. I'm doing my routine. And you sent me an email at 11:45 in the morning. Ben Simmons is the email. He's the email that your boss sends you at 3 o'clock who doesn't have enough smarts to say, you know what, it's Friday at 3 o'clock. Maybe I should wait till Monday morning to send this thing out. We all have dealt with that. I got news for everybody out there. Nobody wants a Friday work email at 3 o'clock. And that's Ben Simmons showing up to practice. So, yeah, it is something, but I think we're making a bigger deal out of the distraction that it really is. Yeah, and I get their record in the regular season is what it is. But I maintain if you're not good in the regular season, you can't get into the playoffs. You can't be a 500 team and expect to win a championship. And I've maintained, yes, the Sixers have been disappointing, but if you think they were ready to win a championship, that's your problem. Your expectations have been too high. So, yeah, their record in the regular season is what it is. But if you think this team was a championship team, then you're not a smart basketball fan. Because you can't come up with anybody, not LeBron James, not Michael Jordan, none of the best players that routinely are franchise players, the best player on the best team. It might have happened once in 1981 or 1976 or whenever. You might be able to find an example. But I'm not looking for the exceptions. I'm looking for the rules. And the rules say the Sixers have not been ready to win a title. But what it says is they have talent to win 50-plus games, to be the number one seed. These are things you need to check off along the way to get to that title. And they have the best record in the league together. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, best record in the league. So I got a great idea. Let's break that up. Yeah, that sounds smart. They win 83% of their games together. You know what's a great idea? The team that wins 83% of their games as a duo, let's get rid of those two guys. When does that sound smart? No, let's let these guys continue to grow together. Let's let these guys build and grow and get old together. Let's not say, well, they haven't won a championship yet at 25 years old. Oh, my God, at 25 years old, they haven't won a title yet? What failures? That LeBron James, he sucks. He didn't win a title at 25. That Michael Jordan, what a horrible player he was. He didn't win a title at 25. How dare them? And guess what? Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, they haven't won a title at 25 either. You know why? They haven't been ready to.
Also, people forget, guys like Malone and Stockton took them over a decade together for them to actually get to the finals. Not even win, just get to the finals. It takes time for these guys to get where they're going. I've been reading that Giannis book about his life and, understanding, everything he went through to get to where he is now, you appreciate it more. But the problem is people aren't patient, Mike. They don't actually want to see things develop.
They don't, and I understand the nature of how the Sixers got to where they are really enters into this, right? The process, all the losing, that enters into the irrational nature of, I sat through the losing, now I want instant gratification. You're not giving me instant gratification, therefore you're a failure. Now I want to be instantly gratified because I sat through 3 losing seasons. Mm-hmm. So I get that point of it. But I don't have to buy into that. That's not my job. It's not my job to say, well, you lost for 3 years, and because you didn't win in the first 3 years of this pairing, therefore you're a failure. No, I understand that at 25 and whatever Joel Embiid, I think he's 28. Now, I would say Embiid is getting to the age where he's ready to start winning the title. And Ben Simmons is probably getting right there. Now, the question is Simmons ready to mature like Embiid did and take his game to another level? Probably not. He's probably not there at this point. I would say, I haven't seen it, but my opinion would be that no, he's not going to take his game to the next level, a la Joel Embiid. But let's just not say that this can't work and he's a failure.
Right. Don't dismiss it out of hand just because you're angry at Ben Simmons still.
Some text messages coming in, 609-403-0973. Mike, I got a thought. I'm just wondering if Ben gets paid, if he's out on medical leave, because a doctor will put you out of work for mental issues. I think just wondering how the pay works. Now, that's a tricky one. The mental aspect of this is a little tricky because I do think that you do get paid in the sense of if you're dealing with mental issues.
Because mental is kind of classified under the same thing as like an injury.
But correct. That is a discernible injury. That's not, oh, my back kind of is tight. That is, I'm dealing with something, and I do think Simmons would get paid in that situation. Now, that being said, I think the big part is not just him saying, I'm not mentally ready to play. It's the fact that he stood up in front of his team and said that. That's the difference. It's not him saying
owning up to his situation.
Correct. He sat down with the team and explained. Now, according to Georges Niang, that they sat there and he explained to them why he's not playing. Now, whether he's lying or not, no one's going to know. But at least he strapped on the big boy pants and stood in front of grown men and said, guys, I am mentally not ready to help you out yet. And if you can give me the chance to get into a better mental frame, hopefully I can get there. That's all I can ask for right now.
And at least it shows maturity on his part as well.
Chief Downey sends in a text. He says, remember when we traded Charles Barkley for role players? Tim Perry, Jeff Hornacek, and Andrew Lang. How'd that work out? It set the organization back for decades. Yeah, and I think that Daryl Morey really understands what you just said. Getting Jeff Hornacek, Tim Perry, and Andrew Lang back for Ben Simmons ain't going to cut it. Ain't going to cut it. Text message, Simmons is sitting out because he doesn't want anything to do with the fans hounding him as soon as he walks on that floor. Why would he not want to come back and impress all of us and punch us in the mouth? Well, I agree with you there 100%. I said maintain from the beginning. He doesn't want to face the fans. And Tim Legler was on with me on Wednesday and agreed, said the same thing. He doesn't want to face the fans. And the reason is what you said, come back and punch us in the mouth. The game hasn't improved. He knows his game hasn't improved, so he can't go out there and shut you up.
And whatever reason why his game hasn't improved is not consequential to this conversation. The reality is that Ben Simmons is who he is at this point in time. And, whether it's, he needs time mentally to, work around that or, whatever it is, obviously there's a lot of things going on with him that are affecting him.
Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. Kevin Kincaid from Crossing Broad. He'll be at the game tonight covering it. We'll talk to him about the comments Daryl Morey made, the stuff Ben Simmons did today. Has that changed the direction of this thing at all? Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today, 6211 Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. I'm your host, Mike Gill, taking you until 6 on a Happy Hour Friday. Jump on in on the Happy Hour live stream on the YouTube channel. Text the show at 609-403-0973. Download the free mobile app and take the show on the go and DM us through the phone. Don't forget, 40 minutes from now, Sal Palantonio. All right, 226 Sports Bash. We got Sixers and Nets tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin Kincaid crossing broad covers the Sixers. Brad, he does a lot of other things too. He writes about nonsense. He writes about soccer, which would be nonsense. Now I'm just getting crazy. All right, Kevin Kincaid, I appreciate it. It's happy hour Friday, man. We get a little crazy over here, you know?
Well, I appreciate that. I'm just going to pretend that I didn't hear that line about soccer, and then we can carry on.
I saw you the other night. You're like the Sixers, the Flyers, the Union, and then here you are tweeting about a Union thing in the middle of like all this stuff happening. I'm like, how did your attention bring you to the Union like in that moment? I was pretty – would you rank soccer ahead of hoops for you?
Well, there's a side gig that I do involving the Philadelphia Union. So, yeah, that would take precedent for that night. And then, I watched the Sixers as the game was going on, and I watched half of the replay while I was up at 2 a.m. with my newborn. So because of the extra time that I have when I'm not sleeping, it affords me the opportunity to watch even more sports than maybe the average person would. So we found a way to fit it all in there,
I like it. All right. Well, obviously – stuff continues to materialize in Ben Simmons today. Did he do anything different today that has changed the direction of this Simmons circus?
It sounds like no. Now, the reports are that he did address the team, and he spoke in front of Joel Embiid and Doc Rivers and Tobias Harris and everybody else, and said that he's just mentally not ready to play yet. And, honestly, Mike, like now it gets into kind of like a tricky borderline taboo kind of area where, anytime you bring up the mental side of things, you got to kind of be careful what you say. I know that a lot of people are going to just say, well, he's faking it. And, he wants a trade and he's going to do whatever he can to get out of here. And maybe there's some truth to that. But at the same time, you just had a recent situation with Lane Johnson where, the media kind of came together and, decided like, hey, we're going to give this guy space, and you understand where the line is drawn, and let personal things be personal. And maybe that's the case here. Look, everybody knows that Ben was dealing with a really difficult situation with his family last year, and I don't know
that a lot of people do know that, by the way, oddly enough, because I brought this up yesterday. I had people texting in that they had never heard that, they didn't know anything about it, that the fact that I brought it up was the first time that they had heard it. I for whatever reason, Kevin, I don't know why that didn't get as much, like the fact that his sister never showed up to the court case in Australia, and that, she had to pay like over $500,000. Like, I don't know that a lot of people here realize that.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe that's just because the media collectively over here was just trying to be respectful of the situation and not shed too much light on it. I think everybody kind of knew what was going on, but respectfully, he wasn't ever asked about it. I think Doc Rivers was asked about it at the end of the year, like, hey, is this affecting Ben? So that was kind of the extent of it, but maybe that segued into the summer and just kind of conflated the whole thing. It's hard to know. It's hard to kind of know what's all connected there and what's separate. But I got no doubt that mentally he's in a tough place right now. I don't know how much of it is legit and how much isn't, and you get into really weird territory there where it's kind of like hard to even go there at all.
Well, I think we almost have now all come to terms. I don't want to speak for you, but he doesn't want to get booed by his home fans, and he knows it's coming. Like, that's the crux of this, right? He knows that Thunderdome is going to happen when he steps on that court, that 20,000 people essentially don't want him there, and he knows that.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly true. And, look, I think it's all kind of like a cumulative effect. Like, one thing after the other, then all of a sudden you're like, I can't show my face in there. Or like, what's the response going to be? And, I just think it was handled so poorly by the people advising him, and his representation. And, the funny thing, Mike, is that like, we've been through this before with Ben. 2 years ago in the Brooklyn playoff series, he got booed off the floor in the first game. And there was the famous quote in the locker room after the game. He said, if you're going to do that, stay on that side. Right. And fans booed him when he came out in game 2, and he came out in game 2. And you remember what happened? He dropped a triple-double, and then everybody was cheering him again like it was no problem. So Ben's not naive to, what the scene is like around here. He witnessed all the Markelle Fultz stuff too, and the difficult times that he went through and the support that he got when he came back. And Ben has also lived it himself with the free throws and with the Brooklyn series, and having the poor outing, and then lighting up Jared Dudley in game 2. So I mean, we've been through this before, I think that's the thing that's kind of raises a red flag here, because this is not some new unforeseen territory that he's trending into.
All right. So yesterday, Daryl Morey essentially said, buckle in. We're in this for the long haul. Is that his way of telling Ben Simmons, you're not getting out of this? I mean, is this just what is that message?
Yeah, that's him talking directly to Rich Paul on Clutch Sports. I saw that headline was so widely circulated, the thing where he said, quote, you're going to think I'm kidding, but this could go on for 4 years. Look, I think hopefully everybody understands that there is a 0% chance of this going on for 4 years. If you could do a less than 0% chance of this going on for 4 years, that's exactly what it would be.
Is his premise right, though, Kevin, that I'm talking to myself, that I'm not trading him for role players, so I'll just hold him, because role players, all you're going to do, fans, is bitch and moan that they're not good enough.
Yeah, that's Daryl Morey using hyperbole to tell Rich Paul and Ben Simmons, like, I ain't doing anything right now, and I don't have to. And he's right, they don't, because you're 1-0. You're in a situation where you got enough talent on this team where you're probably going to rip off enough wins that you're going to be in the top 4 or 5 of the Eastern Conference, and they don't have to do anything at this moment. But what it is. And Daryl Morey used the term, he said, the conditions don't change. And maybe that's true for 2 weeks, but the condition does change, Mike. And the condition is that Joel Embiid ain't getting any younger. Okay, you're in Joel Embiid's prime right now. He's 27 years old. Every minute that you waste of Joel Embiid's prime with a $33 million player not being on the floor is a negative. So I think what happens is, something happens at the trade deadline or before the trade deadline. This thing's not going to go any longer
Kevin,
than that, but they don't have to do anything right this minute.
Now, this was being reported about 10 minutes ago that Joel Embiid stood up and asked Simmons, why do you want to be traded? Simmons responded that he is not feeling mentally himself and he needs time to get right. If he's being truthful, it's not easy to step up in front of your team and say that. I'll at least give him that credit. The point that I'm making, Kevin, is the team's about 500. Could Ben see that as his opportunity and say, look, there's that stat out there that the Sixers won 83% of their games last year when Simmons and Embiid played together. They were the number one duo in terms of wins and losses in the entire league, 35-7 with those two guys playing together. You're about 500. Here's my chance to come back. We win, we play well, and the fans come right back. I mean, is that a play?
That could be a play for sure. Yeah. I mean, you can show how much value, you bring if that's the case for sure. But, you could use that the other way too, to say, hey, look, they're not good without me. Here's the value I have to other teams, So I don't know. It's just, I think we're past the point of a return. And I think everybody's probably agrees on that. And look, Daryl Morey says, look, we're not giving him away for anything more than a difference maker. But difference maker, then you get into arbitrary definitions. What's a role player? What is a difference maker?
Okay, here's a question for you then.
Didn't make the All-Star game last year, but everybody would trade Ben Simmons for De'Aaron Fox.
Now, at this point, everybody would trade Ben Simmons for any of these trades out there. They're just that disenchanted with Ben.
Yeah.
Here's a question then. Should we trust Morey? Is Morey handling this the right way?
I think so. I think of all the people who are involved with this right now, I think you can show the most trust in Daryl Morey because, quite frankly, he's the number one reason why they were so good last year. The moves that he made with Al Horford and Josh Richardson turned a number 6 seed into a number 1 seed. So if you're going to feel comfortable with anybody doing the right thing and making the right read, it's him. And he's right that you're not going to trade this guy for peanuts, Now, maybe nothing develops. Maybe Damian Lillard doesn't become available and Bradley Beal doesn't become available. What if Colin Sexton becomes available? There are trades that you would do that aren't, superstar all-star guys that are going to be palatable and that are going to work. And just because you set your sights, you set the standard really, really high for what you wanted in the first place doesn't mean that you were ever going to get that anyway. You may have always had to settle for a lesser deal, but a lesser deal with a guy who's actually on the floor versus a superstar who's not on the floor, I think everybody would select pretty obviously which one of those scenarios they'd like to roll with.
Kevin Kincaid, he'll be there tonight for Sixers and Nets. Enjoy the circus, man. It should be very interesting.
Yeah, never a dull moment. I'm looking. This is good for site traffic, but not really good for
psyche. Site traffic, not psyche.
Yeah.
Kevin Kincaid, take care, bud.
All right, man. Anytime.
All right, that's Kevin Kincaid from Crossing Broad. He'll be covering the Sixers and Nets tonight. Give us a little perspective on that. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is here. He says Ben Simmons isn't the only problem that the Sixers have. We'll discuss with him coming up next here on the Sports Bash as the weekend look ahead is here with Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. A lot of local stuff going on as well. We'll get his thoughts on that. And obviously the Eagles and the Raiders this weekend, all the NFC East. The Giants with a lot of injuries. They're getting crippled by injuries. Another lost season at the Meadowlands. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City joins me next. All right, 242, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. He's brought to you by Calvi Electric, now offering residential services for your home and business online, calvielectric.com. I'm Mike Gill. Mike McGarry is here, and he writes today over at the pressofatlanticcity.com, which is his Friday must-win column this week, and you can check that out at pressofac.com. He mentions that Ben Simmons isn't the only problem looming for the Sixers. You mean to tell me, Mike McGarry, that there are other issues with this team and it's not all just Ben Simmons?
Correct. To me, the number one issue, and I've harped on this for a long time, and it's the reason why they haven't gotten past the second round of the playoffs, is they don't have a player on the roster who can create off the dribble in the fourth quarter, create shots for themselves and their teammates in the fourth quarter of a playoff game. And whether or not Ben Simmons plays, that guy isn't on the roster right now.
So yesterday he essentially, said his back hurts, and now he's saying that he's not mentally ready to play. He did address the team, apparently. Joel Embiid said, "Why do you want to be traded?" He said, "I'm not mentally ready." Are we getting closer to some resolve, or is this just more, kicking the can down the road?
To me, what's gone on this week, both from the Ben Simmons angle, the stuff that happened today, the stuff earlier in the week, and from the Sixers angle, the Daryl Morey interview where he says, "Buckle up," or this might last 4 years. To me, that's all irrelevant noise. The Sixers' number one issue is they need to put people around Joel Embiid while he's in his prime to help Embiid win a championship or contend for a championship. The roster, as it's presently constituted, with or without Simmons, does not meet that standard at this point. So obviously everybody knows Simmons has got to be traded, okay? And Simmons has got to be traded for a perimeter creator. And that's where we are. Everything else, both sides are saying, to me, doesn't matter.
All right, well, what about what Morey says, "I'm not trading for role players"? Is that a smart – I mean, if they got 3 role players here like they did for Charles Barkley, that's not helping them win a title either, is it?
Well, here's what I say about that. I think the 76ers better take a look in the mirror, or better yet, take a look, pull out the video of the Game 7 loss to the Atlanta Hawks and see exactly who they're trying to trade. I agree. You're not going to call up another team, right? I'm not surprised at that comment. I don't see how Daryl Morey is going to call up another team and say, "Hey, we want to trade you Ben Simmons for one of your star players." And then the opposing GM calls back and says, "Well, I have a problem, Daryl. I'm looking at the video here of Game 7, and I can't find Simmons on the court in the closing minutes of the game. Was he hurt? What was the issue?"
Right.
And, Daryl says, "Well, we had to bench him. He shot 33% from the foul line, and he wouldn't shoot offensively." No one in their right mind is going to give you a star for Simmons. I have maintained since day one that Simmons has to be part of a package of players, a package that goes from the Sixers. It might include a Maxey, it might include a Thibault, it might include draft picks, but he has to be part of a package. You're not getting the player that you need back with Simmons alone. That's my opinion.
Let me flip the other side real quick. If I'm Daryl Morey, I'm saying, look, you're giving me the exception, not the rule. You're giving me one play. The guy has a 5-year span where he's been a 3-time All-Star. He's the defensive runner-up for Player of the Year. He has been one of the top assist guys. You're giving me one. Sixers are 30. On the floor together. They were the best duo in all of basketball. I feel like the style of play that they bring sometimes gets lost in the sauce that when they play together, this team typically wins.
Yeah, but I would counter like that. What are they in the playoffs together? What is their record in the playoffs together? And that's what counts. And I don't think, we can't underestimate it. It happens to guys. Guys' trade value goes down. Look at some careers. Guys, a playoff series can turn it. A league's opinion on a guy. There's no doubt Simmons is as
like Chris Taylor's going to get overpaid.
Yeah, right, possibly, exactly. Sometimes what happens in the playoffs changes our opinions. There's no doubt Simmons is a talented player, but he's kind of has to be put at the right spot. Yeah. He doesn't work with Embiid. And coming off the playoffs last year, I just don't see how anybody who watches that game thinks that you're going to turn around and trade Simmons head up for a superstar or a star player. To me, he's always had to be packaged with something to get back the player the Sixers really need.
Well, and you know, look, I think that's why Morey understands what you're saying and agrees. He said, so I'm not going to move him until time elapses, and then other teams look at the warts that they currently have.
Right, exactly. And that's why I agree in principle what Morey is saying. I'm not giving Simmons away just to get rid of him this week, just because he's a problem and a distraction. What I do need to happen, what I do think should happen, and I think it's kind of happened today, is we've got to stop this day-to-day drama. We've got to stop the rhetoric from the Simmons side. We've got to stop the rhetoric from the Morey side. And we've just got to say, hey, Ben, go home, do what you've got to do. We will trade you when we get a deal that we feel is fair. That might happen tomorrow. It might happen 3 weeks from now. It might happen 3 months from now. It's not going to last 4 years. That's the most ridiculous comment I've ever heard. All right. A deal will happen that the Sixers think is fair to me. And let's go on and play basketball on a day in and day out basis without this drama sort of hanging over the team.
Right. I mean, and that's where the rub kind of is. Like, you know, he's saying I'm not mentally ready to play. The Sixers say, well, we're going to try to trade you. We're not getting an offer right now. The way for us to get a better offer is for you to play. So it's kind of just like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Are you going to play? Are you going to trade me? Well, we can't trade you unless you play. Well, I'm not ready to play. Well, then we can't trade you. I mean, this egg, the shell game's going all, Monty's moving the thing all over the place here.
Yeah, but to me, come on, we know what Ben Simmons is. He's got a track record of 4 or 5 years. We know his strengths. We know his shortcomings. If he goes and plays well for a month, I don't think that's really going to change his life. What I think will change in a month is other teams will have problems, right? Who knows what happens in Portland? Who knows what happens in Washington? Maybe somebody gets hurt. Maybe another team is doing better than they think, and they want him and say Ben Simmons would fit in well here. I think this Ben Simmons isn't going to change. We know what Ben Simmons is. I think the circumstances at other NBA teams will change as
I agree with that.
on.
Now, the one thing he could do, Mike, is come back, shoot 65%, 70% from the line, and that shows the other teams, all right, maybe he's past those quote-unquote mental yips, you know.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? It would be in a perfect world. You're right. In a perfect world, Ben Simmons comes back and says, hey, I don't want to be here, but I'm a professional, so I'm going to play hard and I'm going to help the team I win with. The team I'm with right now, but I'd still like to be traded. But we all know this isn't a perfect world. That's not the way it works. The best thing now is just to stop this the noise from both sides. It's just too much, and it distracts from the main goal. And the main goal, as I wrote my must-win today, is they've got to get a guy who can create off the dribble in the fourth quarter to help Embiid win a championship. Because if they don't get that guy in the next couple of years, then Embiid going to look around and say, hey, I can't win here. I want to go somewhere else.
I was reading your column today, and I implore everybody out there to do the same at pressofatlanticcity.com, Mike McGarry's must-win column. I was reading that today, and my thought is, look, maybe Maxey's not ready this year or next year, but maybe that third year, you know, when he's in his fourth year, like, you know, maybe
I would agree with that.
They're kind of saying, look, we have the guy, he's right here, but and that's the whole thing with this Sixers team that I look at. It's like, people are saying they didn't win a title and they're a disappointment and they haven't got out of the second round. Guys at 25 years old don't get out of the second round. Right. They don't win titles. And people wanted the Sixers to win before they were ready to win because of the way they got to where they were. That's what it comes down to. They lost on purpose for 3 seasons. Then they win 50 games. So people say, well, you made me sit through the losing. Now I want instantaneous gratification. And they're not ready to give you that.
Yeah, my only point to that, and I agree with everything you said, and I'm saying I said in the commentary that Maxey's not ready now. Your point is well taken. In 2 years, he might be ready, but the Embiid clock is ticking. He's 27. I know that's still relatively young, but look at his body type, his injury history. Look, it's game 2 of the season, and he's questionable tonight with a knee injury. Okay, so let's. The clock is ticking, and I don't think you can afford to waste one Embiid year.
I agree. Mike McGarry, Press of Atlantic City. By the way, T.O. says, I think he's going about it the wrong way. Try to be a little bit more professional about the situation. If T.O.'s telling you you need to be more professional, holy moly. Woo. All right, Mike. Friday night, happy hour Friday. We got a lot going on. What's the big high school news this weekend, and what are some of the big games?
We got a couple of big games tonight. I'll be heading over to Shawnee, number 1 in our Elite 11. St. Augustine hosts Shawnee, who's number 11. Down at Mainland, it'll be a great game. Delsea Regional undefeated against Mainland down there at 6 o'clock. Get there early for that game. Two teams that like to run the football, kind of a throwback there. Delsea's thrown only 25 passes all season long. They run for 370 yards a game. So, clock moves quick when you have a running attack like that. And the couple big games tomorrow, Ocean City at Oakcrest, and I'll be in Hamilton tomorrow. St. Joe playing a Saturday afternoon home game at William Capella Field at the Hamilton Middle School against Washington Township is 6-1. Should be a big weekend. 2 weeks to go before the playoffs, Mike. Couple of teams got a chance to win division titles this weekend. It gets late early in high school football as we move towards the playoffs.
5 teams, by the way, have a chance to win division
exactly.
titles. What's going on with all these fights, man?
I think we've had a couple of crazy scenes at high school football games on Fridays. Friday night, it's kind of caught the eye of people. And I think, I have a story on the paper today and online. And I really think, Mike, when you look at it, I think it's one of those things that's coming out of the pandemic. For a lot of these high school football games, this is the most people that have gathered in one place in a lot of these towns since the pandemic struck. And I think to a degree, people have kind of forgotten how to act in public, right? A little bit. We saw this when the crowds returned to the pro games. I mean, people were running on the field at Phillies games, the Sixers games. They dumped the popcorn on Westbrook's head. I think, there's a lot of emotion out there. People are happy to be out, a lot of enthusiasm, but sometimes it gets carried away. And I think people have kind of forgotten how to act like they, in public since we, kind of shut down society for almost 2 years.
Real quick, Mike, is this a winnable road game for the Eagles in Vegas?
I think it's winnable. I don't think they're going to win. I said they'd get one of the two, right? A couple of weeks ago, I said they weren't going to get both at Carolina and both at Vegas. I thought both were winnable games. They got the one at Carolina. I don't think they're getting the one Sunday in Vegas.
And more local news, the Siegel Classic is back. The schedule is out. You can check that out online right now. Mike McGarry, Press of Atlantic City. So much going on. The Giants are going to get Rochambeau this week, and I can tell you that much.
I wouldn't be surprised. 19-51 since 2017. So saying they're going to lose is a good bet.
All right, Mike, take care, man. Mike McGarry, everybody, from the Press of Atlantic City at AC Press McGarry. Check out his must-win column on the Sixers and Ben Simmons. By the way, you can listen to the Eagles and Raiders right here at 4:05. Coverage starts at 3 from the Eagles Radio Network on 97.3 ESPN. And Mike McGarry's appearance on the show is brought to you by Calvi Electric. Visit them online at calvielectric.com. Sal Palantonio next. Eagles and Raiders this weekend. Coverage begins at 3, kickoff at 4:05, 97.3 ESPN's coverage with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick. The Eagles injury report just out as we speak, and that includes questionable designations for Anthony Harris, the safety. We also know that Dallas Goedert is back. Lane Johnson will start. Mailata's moving back to left tackle. There's a lot to digest on this one as the Eagles hit the road to Vegas, baby. Sal Palantonio. It's a Sal Pal Friday. Thanks to our friends Johnny G, the Burger Realty team in Ocean City. Johnny G and the boys over there do a great job here on the island as we look at Sal Pal Friday, a look at the Eagles and the Raiders in Vegas. Sal Pal, how are you?
I'm great, Mike Gill. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I know that this Eagles game is kind of, as much in Philadelphia that a football game can be secondary. Ben Simmons has hogged the entire week, so the Eagles can kind of focus in on being a flawed team getting ready for a road game, which could be a good thing.
I call it the total eclipse of the Simmons.
That's what's happened this week. It's not often that the Eagles get overshadowed in Philadelphia, right? I mean, you know that.
No, but I tell you what, as much as a nightmare the Simmons situation is, I'm going to bank shot on this and say going into week 7, Carson Wentz has 9 touchdown passes and only 1 interception.
Right.
So that's the real nightmare scenario for Philadelphia Eagles fans, is that Frank Reich managed to fix Carson Wentz because right now he's outplaying Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position.
Well, Nick Sirianni this week, he kind of indicated that he wants Hurts to stay in the pocket, throw more from the pocket, keep his eyes off the rush. There's a lot of people saying, look at his eyes. He's putting his head down. He wants him to get rid of the ball. What's the problem with that statement?
What do you mean? What's the problem with the statement? I think I sent those Nick Sirianni quotes to you earlier in the week because I thought they were important.
Right.
And they didn't get a lot of play, right?
Right. Well, he's saying that he wants him to stay in the pocket, and the response is the problem with that comment would be Hurts isn't delivering the ball accurately. That's been the issue here.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So no, listen, the focus has been tremendously on the fact that the Eagles have to run the ball more. And I'm all for that. I'm for running the ball more. I'm for more balance on offense. But in addition to running the ball more, they must pass the ball better. And right now, I don't see it at all. It's a very inefficient offense. It's a very unproductive offense. And all you got to do is look at a very vital statistic that I always look at, and that is the average points scored per drive. Now, the Eagles have had 65 offensive drives, Mike Gill, 65. They've only scored 15 touchdowns on those 65 offensive drives. That's way below average. They're only averaging 2 points per drive. That's way below the average in the National Football League. They're very unproductive. And the way that you're productive, I've always been taught, is that your points come out of the passing game. Yes, you want to be balanced, and I am for running the ball more, especially from the running back position. And they do go hand in hand. You play complementary football that way. But in order for this team to really go, Jalen Hurts must be more accurate. Jalen Hurts must be more productive, and that starts with him staying in the pocket and at least getting to his second, perhaps third read. And that will happen if Nick Sirianni develops an offense around him that's really more like what you see from like a Tom Brady kind of offense, which means you have a layered look where you have a deep ball, a middle ball, and a short ball that's available to Jalen Hurts. And one of the things that I think that they have to do is load up on the offensive line, and for lack of a better term, deception through play action pass. The Titans do it very well. The Bucks do it very, very well. Even the New England Patriots do it pretty well with Mac Jones. The foundation of what they do is play action pass.
Yeah, well,
you can't have play action pass. You can't have play action pass if you're not intending at all to run the football.
Yeah, and how much of that is on the play design of this offensive coordinator and this head coach, right? I mean, that's where the crux of this is his play design is not allowing you to do stuff that you just mentioned there. Because I agree, their personnel is very friendly to the play action game.
Yes. Well, they got to run the ball though, Mike, because if you're not even if there's no deception and there's no design, you know, most of the league knows what's coming when Jalen Hurts lines up. That's why you see them daring Jalen Hurts to run the ball. Now, Jalen Hurts is the number one option when the Eagles are trying to move the chains, right? He has 21 rushing first downs. 21. That's second only to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has 24. But Lamar Jackson also has Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews has 25 receiving first downs. And Lamar Jackson has 24 rushing first downs. After Jalen Hurts, the Eagles have nobody in the top 60 in either rushing or receiving first downs. He's their entire first down option. When they want to move the chains, Hurts is their number one option by a long shot. By a long shot. And unless he gets another option to move the chains, teams will load the box on third down against him and make it very difficult for him to get the first down either through passing or running with the football.
Sal Pal Friday, you know, I know, Sal, running the ball is something they need to do more. I'm not one of these, it's got to be 50-50, but 65, you know, you got to mix it in every once in a while. But this is a team that had two viable tight ends. Now they're down to one, but can just having Goddard actually make things easier for this offense? Just having one tight end in the offense instead of trying to serve two masters almost.
Well, you know, you look at Sirianni's offense and he wants to have three wide receivers on the field, one tight end, one running back, so-called 11 personnel. Under Doug Peterson, the Eagles lived in so-called 12 personnel, one back, two tight ends. Sirianni doesn't want to do that. But in order to be successful doing that, Michael, your quarterback has to be able to throw accurately and not just rely on one read and run. Or else, what are you doing? You're wasting wide receivers on the field, right?
Yep.
Obviously. You're wasting them. So that's the offense he wants to have. But I also want to be the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus.
Well,
I mean, we all want certain things in life, but you're not getting that with this quarterback right now. So you're correct, 1,000%. That's why I'm on your show, because you're right all the time. And you're right about this. Design matters. Scheme matters. The play design goes hand in hand always in a successful offense with your personnel. That's how you get execution. Scheme matches personnel, gives you execution. And right now, they are not married to one another.
So earlier this week, I don't know that you heard Jalen Hurts said something that raised my eyebrows a little bit on this. And he was asked on, you know, they said the data shows that you don't throw towards the middle of the field very often. And he said, I'm just trying to execute everything that's called. Is that him saying that they're telling me not to throw the ball to the middle of the field? Is that his way of saying, I'm just doing what they're telling me?
Well, you know, they don't control the middle of the field because they usually only have one tight end on the field. And they don't control the middle of the field because they don't run option routes. They run crossing routes. They run a lot of routes outside the numbers, but he's not an outside the numbers accurate passer at this point in his career. He may be at some point.
Right.
That's something you develop unless you have, you know, Justin Herbert's arm or, Matthew Stafford's arm. And he doesn't have that yet. He may have it, but he doesn't have it yet.
Mm-hmm. I like to look at this game and say, hey, it's a road game. They've won 2 games on the road, and there's a common theme, Sal, in my eyes, of games they've won this year, both on the road. The team that they're playing is very weak in the offensive line. Would the Raiders be in that category of a weak offensive line where their defensive front can win at the point of attack? That has seemingly been their recipe. Carolina, weak offensive line. Atlanta, very weak offensive line.
Yes, I think you're correct in your analysis. The Raiders don't have an offensive line that matches up. The difference, well, let's just look at the Carolina game. Let's throw the Atlanta game out completely. The difference is Derek Carr is not going to give the ball away as much or as easily, let's put it that way, as Sam Darnold. Now, the Raiders don't run the ball very well or very often either. They rely on their passing game and pushing it downfield. So you would think that the 4-man rush of Jonathan Gannon can get home on Derek Carr.
Right. And obviously, that's the key for their defense because, we know the same story. If they're going linebackers, Waller's going to have a field day against these linebackers. And Jacobs is a load of a running back. I mean, this is not a great matchup in those aspects, but can they balance it out by winning at the point of attack? I think that's where this game is won or lost on Sunday. And it feels like this is a game that you can steal on the road if you can win at the defensive line.
Yeah, and the other thing is that Gannon's defense, as we know, doesn't blitz, and they play 2 deep safeties, and that should take away the Raiders' strength, which is going down the field with the football. So if the Raiders play into that, they lose the game. Bottom line, they do, and the Eagles win.
Well, I'm going to get your take on the game in just a minute, but you've been covering this city and this town and this team nationally.
Oh no, you're not going to go. You're not going Ben Simmons on me.
Well, no, but I want to get your take on what Kelsey said.
No, don't do it, Michael.
What Kelsey said yesterday resonates. That if you play well, this place will love you. Is it true though? Like, is he right? Do you just are the fans fair to the players here?
Sure, they are. I do believe that. Okay. I think the Philadelphia fans are fair and knowledgeable and passionate and tough. And the thing that they've always done is they put their money where their mouth is. This fan base, more than any other, you can make the argument that this fan base, whether it's the Phillies or the Eagles or the Sixers, has suffered as much as any fan base in the country. I mean, the Phillies had the most losses in North America in the 20th century. Yeah. We all know that. It's been well documented, right? Phillies haven't been in the playoffs in how long? 10 years?
2011.
Postseason?
Yep.
They haven't been in the playoffs in 10 years. And the Eagles did not win a Super Bowl while there were 12 Super Bowl titles in the NFC East until Doug Peterson and Nick Foles won the Super Bowl. So this fan base has suffered, but they've never faltered in their financial support or their vocal, passionate support of their teams, the athletes. That's why they loved Allen Iverson, loved them. That's why they loved Chase Utley. I mean, that's why they loved Charles Barkley. I mean, guys who were lunch pail guys, and that's all you got to do. I mean, that's it. Win or lose. But, it helps to win. But as long as you are committed 100% all in, then you'll have a fan for life.
Yeah. Well, everybody always says I tune in because I want to hear Sal Pal's keys to the game. This is a winnable game as we've documented. What are Sal Pal's keys this week?
Well, the first thing is, first and foremost, is the quarterback, if he doesn't turn the ball over on the road, this is a road game, that gives you a 75% chance to win the game, in my opinion. That's the number one thing. Number two is you can control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and I think that the Eagles will. I think this game can go a lot like the Panthers game in that respect. Is they'll find their footing late in the game and they'll pull out a victory. I got the Eagles winning on a last minute field goal, 27-24.
All right, there you go, 27-24 Eagles. And I agree with the, by the way, Lane Johnson will be back in the game. Jordan Mailata back to left tackle. I agree with the control, the line. Like the game last night, Cleveland-Denver. Offensive line wins the game for Cleveland. They have no quarterback. The two running backs are hurt, and they won that game because they controlled the line of scrimmage against Denver last night. That's the basically the method to the madness for Nick Sirianni, I think, this week.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's all. Football's not a hard game. It really isn't.
Well, Nick Sirianni seems to be making it pretty hard.
There's a reason why I talked about two things in this game.
Yeah.
And two things I talked about: moving the chains. Okay. You want to get first downs. Okay. And then you want to score points. That's the object of the game. You want to go down the field. You do that by moving the chains, getting first downs, and then you want to get into the end zone. You do those two things, Mike Gill, you're going to win the football game.
Well, I've heard a lot of I'm excited to see Goddard. I've heard a lot of that this week. I want to see Goddard have a big game, big week, get the tight end involved. The tight end, we used to have a guy when I was at West Virginia, Lovett Purnell was his name. He was the security blanket. And we say, man, get it to the security blanket all the time. That's what Hurts needs to do. Get it to the security blanket, man, and that'll open some things up for this offense.
Okay, well, it's all well and good, but they're not getting a lot of yards out of Goddard. That's the problem. I mean, to me, I wouldn't go in this direction.
No, but that moves the chains. That's what I'm saying. First downs, that moves the chains.
Yeah, but he hasn't been doing a whole heck of a lot of that yet. But,
you're right about that.
This is where he's got to start for sure. To me, I go back to two tight ends and put a fullback on the field. Start handing the ball up. No, I mean, seriously. Come on.
I think a lot of people that listen to the audience would agree with you. I just don't think that we're going to that style of football. Is that coming back?
Well, I mean, two tight ends on the field, have the fullback, and one necessary.
Yep.
It's by any means necessary. Get those first downs, keep that quarterback on schedule, give him some defined reads off of controlling the line of scrimmage and controlling the clock and controlling field position. Look, in the matchup show, we talk about, Derrick Henry, okay, and how he's probably the best single talent right now in the National Football League, dominant talent. But there haven't been too many teams that have won the Super Bowl with the running back being the focal point of their offense. You have to go basically back to Super
on the sports.
They won it. Yeah. Huh?
Oh, I thought you were saying something. I was getting out of your way there for a second.
No. I'm just saying, not many times where you have a running back who's going to carry you to the Super Bowl title.
Oh, yeah. Not in this day and age, no.
No. But you need to have one and a running game to keep so that your quarterback doesn't have to carry the load. When your quarterback is the number one guy getting first downs out of the running game, Michael, it's all out of whack.
Hey, totally agree with that. I mean, Ajayi and Blunt was just enough. It was just enough to kind of, keep you balanced, even though you're not 50-50. And that's where
go back to that game in LA against the Chargers. Remember?
Yep.
Again, Sirianni was on the sideline. He talked about it this week. LeGarrette Blunt, I mean, he just hammered that at the end of the game in the fourth quarter. Peterson just kept calling running plays after running plays, and that was with Carson Wentz on the field.
And calling too many runs got him fired. Sadly. I hope that whole Laurie thing isn't why he calls so many pass plays,
Oh, Mike Gill. That's a whole nother segment for a whole nother show, brother.
All right. Well, when if they're 5-11, maybe we'll get into that.
Okay. All right, I'll talk to you.
All right, Sal Palantonio here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And, of course, you can always text the show at 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Sal Pal has the Eagles winning this week. How about that? That's 3 predictions, 3 wins. Andrew DeCecco, Rob Motti, Sal Palantonio, my prediction later. But coming up next, we're going to go to Vegas. My boy Q from Raider Nation Radio covers the Raiders. He'll give us some insight on this Raiders team. And do they think it's a possible upset on the horizon? We'll go to Vegas coming up next. 97.3 ESPN, your home for Eagles and Raiders. All right, 326, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Raiders, Eagles, coverage begins at 3 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. My boy Q, it says your boy Q, but he's my boy Q. Raider Nation Radio in Vegas, 9:20 a.m., and he's getting ready to go on the air here pretty soon, but he's happy enough, kind enough to join us to give us a little insight on the Eagles and the Raiders. We don't see this one all that much, Q. The last time I think was 2013, maybe 2017. Was it that year?
Yeah, 2017.
Day. I forgot about that one. That was an ugly one.
That was a win for the Eagles. The Eagles won that one.
It was ugly, though. That was like a painful game to watch. It doesn't happen often. The game's in Vegas. Let me start with this. What is this Raider team right now with the transition from Gruden, the new coach? I don't even know the new coach's name. What's the guy's name?
Rich Bisaccia. Remember, he was the special teams coach there in Dallas with the Cowboys for a long time.
All right. So is the identity different? Has anything? They only played one game, but that's probably the best they've looked all year.
Well, they did. They looked really dominated against the Denver Broncos, and it was a big question. Are they going to be emotional? Were they going to have an emotional letdown? Were they going to be able to really step their game up? And they did. They went out there, played a division opponent, an AFC opponent, and they got the win, and in dominating fashion. So it was a one-game test so far. I think the identity remains the same. It sounds like they're a little bit looser in practice. Seems like they're a little bit looser in game time situations. Josh Jacobs kind of joked with us earlier this week and said, well, there was nobody cussing on the sidelines, nobody yelling at the officials. If anything went bad, it was just like, okay, one bad play, let's get back on it. And it wasn't really any anxiety. That's the way he said it. He called it no anxiety on the sidelines. So maybe it's a little looser now without Gruden there on the sideline, but Bisaccia is just business as usual.
Now, this team is obviously 4-2. They've I think they've had some surprise wins, right? But would you say that this is a complete team? Do they know who they are? Do they know who they want to be? When you look at this team right now, even at 4-2, you would say, 4-2, good team.
Right.
But do they have an identity yet? Do they know who they are?
I think that they're getting closer. I don't think that they're fully there yet. I'm not going to tell you that that's a well-oiled machine. They've had a couple big victories over Baltimore to start the season off, and then they went to Pittsburgh and won that game. And, I mean, there's been some nice wins. But at the same time, they haven't established the run game as much as they'd like. They started to get going last week against Denver. Derek Carr's been throwing the ball around the yard. And really, the good thing for the Raiders this season, what's been surprising, especially from my point of view, is that guys like Henry Ruggs and Brian Edwards have played pretty big roles so far, where last season they were pretty non-existent. So the emergence of those guys has really helped Derek Carr and really helped Darren Waller as well not have to be the number one feature, even though he still is the number one feature, but all eyes are on him. It's not where Darren Waller goes. If they don't have a big day from him, they're not going to have a big day. They have other weapons that are getting involved.
All right, here's where, to me, the crux of this game is, Q. The offensive line for the Raiders. Would you describe them as weak, average, good?
They're average at best right now. Not going to lie to you. Going to keep it 100 with you all the time. They're average at best, and they're trying to get better. They moved their right tackle, that they drafted, Alex Leatherwood, out of Alabama, number 17 overall pick. He was supposed to be right tackle of the future. He's currently right guard. So they moved him in already, but they had a really good game last week against Von Miller. So now that he's there he's played 2 games at the right guard position. Brandon Parker's at the right tackle position. It's a work in progress, but it looks like it's starting to trend in the right direction, but I don't think that they're close to being a well-oiled machine. They've still got a lot of work to do. They've had a lot of moving parts along that offensive line. So it's like I said, average at best with the hopes to get to the good level.
Well, that's where the Eagles have had their success. When teams have a weak offensive line, their defensive front's pretty good. Their linebackers weak. The secondary, Anthony Harris, is on the questionable for this week. Their secondary is just average at best. But I want to go to the Eagles' offensive line. That's where they're pretty good. They don't run the ball a lick, though. Not at all. Non-existent. Where is the weakness of the Raider defense?
You know what? The funny thing is, Mike, is that the Raiders defense this year is really serviceable. It's really good. The defensive line is strong. They've been getting home with their front four, and just like Philadelphia, they don't blitz a whole lot. I know Philly's probably the least blitzing team in the league. The Raiders are right there next to them, and their linebackers are much improved this year. They signed KJ Wright from Seattle. Denzel Perryman, they made a trade for him with the Carolina Panthers. He's leading the league in tackles. Their linebackers are playing well. Corey Littleton is starting to play like the Corey Littleton that they expected when they signed him as a free agent out of from the Rams. And the safeties are playing well. Jonathan Abram, he's not playing that center field anymore. He's now playing a box safety role similar to what Cam Chancellor played in Seattle. And the rookie Trayvon Merritt out of TCU is playing that free safety role / that Earl Thomas role. And no, they're not Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor, but they're serviceable. They're playing some good ball. So really, I'd say if there's a weakness on this Raiders defense right now, it's the secondary because there's so many injuries. Casey Hayward is the veteran. He's been playing really good ball, but across from him, Trayvon Mullen is out. He's on IR. Damon Arnett, the former first-round pick, he's on IR. So now they're down to Brandon Faison, who they just signed from the Chargers practice squad a couple of weeks ago. And then they just signed Desmond Trufant, who Gus Bradley said this week is going to be the number 3 defensive back. So they kind of let you know they're thin on the corners.
Yeah, I was going to say Trufant, man. That's you're really stretching there. Let me, the Eagles obviously Hurts has been. What is the feeling from the Raiders about the Eagles offensively? They don't run the ball a whole heck of a lot. Everything is in Hurts' lap. He's been up and down. Production-wise, the stats are pretty good, but he's been inaccurate. It's been a very mixed bag here this week. Getting ready for this Eagle team, what has been kind of the discussion when looking at a 2-4 Eagles team? Is it Hurts? Is it the Eagles defense? What about this team kind of has been the discussion of worry?
The discussion really has been eliminate the big play. Eliminate the big plays either by Jalen Hurts and his legs, his ability to run the ball, get outside the pocket, and break contain. I mean, Lamar Jackson was the first opponent that the Raiders faced this year in the Allegiant Stadium. So that's a heck of a weapon right there. So if you're able to defeat Lamar Jackson, you feel pretty good. But we all know Jalen Hurts is leading the team in rushing yards right now. He's going to give you everything he's got out there. I mean, he's not a well-oiled machine. He's not polished yet, but he's going to give you everything he's got. So I think it's just keep Jalen Hurts kind of in the pocket and don't allow the big play to happen. Got some speedsters on the outside as far as those wide receivers with Philadelphia goes. If they're able to get behind that secondary, and again, I mentioned the secondary being a little banged up outside of Casey Hayward, that's probably the biggest concern I would think for the Raiders right now going into this game is just don't get wooed to sleep, kind of like you did against Chicago and the Bears embarrassed you at home. Don't get embarrassed at home by Philadelphia and the rowdy Eagle fans that will be at Allegiant Stadium. No doubt.
I was going to say that. Is that a story out there this
Yes.
week? I mean, I saw there was an email I got about how many tickets the Eagle fans have purchased. There's already video of a flight out there with Eagle fans already. I mean, this is normal. I mean, they have filled stadiums as road teams. They do it in Miami all the time.
Yeah.
They did it out in LA with the Chargers. I'm telling you, I told you on your show the other day, they're going to pack. I don't know what the Raiders fans are like in terms of it's a new team. Do they show up? Do they get a lot of tickets, or has it been half and half? How's it been?
It's been very Raider Nation heavy as far as Allegiant Stadium goes, but Chicago, those Bears fans, they traveled well and they were very loud. And so they kind of gave the Raider fans almost a wake-up call like, hey, don't just sell your tickets to anybody because those fans will come. And so that's been a conversation since the Raiders have been in Las Vegas. How much of a home field advantage will they have or will they not have? And so I saw that plane that's already headed to Vegas of Eagle fans. I will say the plane looked a little small, so we'll see. We'll see exactly. But I know there's already a lot of fans here that are living in Las Vegas that are Philadelphia fans. Matter of fact, they just opened a Chickies and Pete's. We had the grand opening of it last night. So, it's Philadelphia-based as well.
I was just there yesterday doing my show live, Chickies and Pete's every Thursday. One of the things here, too, is obviously Derek Carr and where he was with Gruden, where he is now. I mean, how important he is to the offense. I'm interested in, are they going to lean on him a lot in a game like this against Philly, who's, they have not defended the defense. The defense has been such a mixed bag, man. I mean, they played Kansas City, couldn't stop them. Tampa Bay, overwhelmed. Cowboys, just out of their class. Atlanta, San Francisco, Carolina, they've been in those games. Right. So I don't know where the Raiders offense kind of stacks up with that group of teams, those 6, because it's been 3 good games, 3 bad games.
Right. Well, I'll tell you right now, the Raiders are definitely going to lean on Derek Carr. They've leaned on him all season long. The run game hasn't got started the way I think it should. They played a team in the Chargers that gave up 170 yards a game on the ground, and they hardly got anything, got about 58 yards rushing. Now, they did a lot better last week against Denver. So, again, I'm assuming that they're going to continue to develop and they're going to continue to get better. I think this is an ideal game for Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake to try to get busy and really get going on that run game, because the Eagles' run defense isn't that great, and I also know that the linebackers aren't that good as far as the Eagles go. So I think that Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, Kenyon Drake out of the backfield could be weapons for the Raiders, no doubt about it.
The Waller matchup is a problem. Now, the interior of the Raider line, you mentioned Leatherwood inside. Yeah. What is the guard, center guard? Because that's where the Eagles excel. Fletcher Cox and Hargrave. Hargrave's been Aaron Donald-esque this year. He's got like 7 sacks. I mean, he's been unbelievable. Those two guys, if they win the point of attack in the interior, that changes the complexion of the whole offense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's been a suspect area for the Raiders. They have a new center in Andre James. He was an undrafted guy out of UCLA, and he struggled. He really has. The Raiders gave a lot of confidence in him, turning it over, replacing Rodney Hudson, who's now in Arizona as the center there. And so, that's been an area of concern for the Raiders all season long. So I do think the Eagles' defensive line, especially on the interior, is going to be able to get home, and it's going to be up to Derek Carr. Again, leaning on Derek Carr to get rid of that ball and get it to the open guy, probably a Hunter Renfrow, maybe a running back out of the backfield, Jacobs, Richard, or Kenyon Drake. And if they can get them matched up with those linebackers, then I think that's an area where they feel like that they can win. But Derek Carr's going to have to get that ball out of his hand quick, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's one area where the Eagles, when they have won, they've won at the point of attack. They crushed Atlanta. They just buried that offensive line and got to Ryan all day. They did the same thing to Darnold. They forced 3 turnovers in the game because they just flat out overwhelmed the offensive line. They do have talent up front on the offensive line. That, to me, is their path to victory. I guess the other thing, Ruggs was upgraded to full practice today. He's going to go, I would imagine, here. Yeah. The health of the Raiders, where do they stand for this week? Because Philadelphia is pretty healthy.
Yeah, I saw that. The Raiders, they had a long laundry list of guys that were on the injury report and are on the injury report, but for the most part, they're all pretty good to go. So Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards, Colton Miller, the left tackle, those guys will all be good to go. In the interior, Quentin Jefferson, he's missed a couple days due to personal reasons, so we'll see what comes of that. But for the most part, I think that the Raiders are about as healthy as they can be. The guys that they need to be out there will be out there on Sunday for sure.
All right. The one last thing on the intricacies of this game, Ngakoue, obviously Max Crosby's been excellent. Are those the type of guys, the Eagles don't run a lick, but if Sirianni finally decides he wants to run, now they do a lot of RPO, it's a college game you're watching Sunday here. Are those the type of ends that are losing contain, getting up the field? In other words, can you kind of use RPO because those guys are a little bit too aggressive?
I would think so. The Max Crosby and Ngakoue, those aren't guys that are excelling against the run. They're just not. Those are guys that are pure pass rushers. They want to pin their ears back and get to the quarterback. And that's a little dangerous with a guy like Jalen Hurts because of everything you just mentioned, that RPO. I think this is a game where a guy like Cleve Ferrell, who's not a starter, I think Cleve Ferrell steps up and he plays a role in this game because he's very good at stopping the run. He's very good at setting the edge. And that's a very big key. I've been talking about it all week. That's a key to this game. You got to set the edge. You got to keep that pocket. You cannot break contain. You can't get too far upfield because Jalen Hurts will get out of there quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Well, yeah, if you get those ends coming up field, Hurts can either get up and cut inside them, or if they come at him, that's where you'll see Miles Sanders. Last year he had 80-yard run, 75-yard run, big plays. He has not been a part of the offense at all this year. And the kid, Gainwell, that they got out of Memphis, he's a weapon. They just don't use him. I'm interested to see how they use Goddard this week with Ertz no longer here. And then Devonta Smith, he's been up and down. I mean, 1 week he has a big week, the next week he doesn't. I know you got to run and do your show real quick. What's better, Vegas or AC, baby?
I love Vegas, man. I'm in Vegas, so I got to say Vegas, but I know Atlantic City is awesome. I got to come visit you, man. You come visit me, I'll come visit you. Yeah, I know the draft's out there next year, right? Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna do I've never been to Vegas. I'm gonna do my best to get to that draft next year. There it is. That's what's up. Well, I appreciate you, man. I'll make sure you feel right at home when you get here. All right, Q. Good to see you. You too, brother. All right. The Raiders and Eagles this Sunday, 3:00 right here. The coverage begins. The kickoff 4, 97.3 ESPN has it for you. Mel Reese and Mike Quick on the call. This hour of the show, it's brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. Choose better banking for rates on loans, refinancing, and credit cards.
free or low-cost financial products and friendly personal service. Visit JerseyShoreSCU.org for more information. Q Myers, he is the program director and on-air host at Raider Nation Radio 920 AM in Vegas. Now, I talked to them the other night on their show out there in Vegas. They were telling me they think the Eagles at 2-4 are better than the record indicates. Now, I would imagine they saw them play Carolina, they saw them play Atlanta, and not, Kansas City, Dallas, and the Kansas City, Dallas, and Tampa Bay. The Eagles just got overwhelmed.
Well, do you think maybe
even though the scores weren't all that bad?
Well, do you think maybe the part of it also is they look at Kansas City and be like, well, we lose that way to Kansas City all the time?
Who, the Raiders?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think everybody looks
Kansas
at
City twice a year.
Yeah, but I think everybody looks at Kansas City, right? I get what you're saying. Like, they see Kansas City, so they know if you lose to Kansas City, there's no shame. I think Kansas City's been a little bit of a disappointment, and even them being a disappointment, the Eagles really they were in that game a little bit, though. That's the weird part. What was it, like 40 to 41-30 or something like that?
I think it was 42-30, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I don't know. All the stuff that Q just said, Sal Pal, I'm like formulating all this stuff and compiling it together. Kind of feeling pretty good about this game for some reason. That's how I feel right now at 3:43.
That might change in 2 hours.
We'll find out. Sports Bash, Adam Caplan. Football at 4. Happy Hour Friday, Pete Thompson. Flyers play. What do Flyers play?
This weekend?
No, Cam Atkinson had a couple goals on Wednesday night. They got to be playing again. Maybe they play tonight. I don't know. How come it's not written down on my schedule here? PT 440 for the Happy Hour Friday. Casey Joyner, one thought every game. Back with more Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. All right, 348 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. I'm Mike Gill. What's going on, everybody? Follow me on Twitter, at Mike Gill Show. Thanks to my boy Q. Stopping by from Raider Nation Radio. Text the show right now, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Mike, as far as traveling fans, there's a pretty nice contingent of South Jersey people who now live in Vegas, working in casinos. They will probably rep the Eagles pretty good. That's Jay from AC. Yeah, I anticipate that the crowd is going to be very Eagle-friendly out there, that you are going to hear Eagles plenty on Sunday, right? I definitely think you're going to hear that. And look, we saw what happened when they took over the StubHub Center, whatever the heck that little soccer joint was out in when the Chargers first moved to LA. They were playing at that soccer stadium. That place was 90% Eagles, it sounded like. I mean, it was nuts out there. More text messages coming in. Mike, the reason I asked this question about paying Rich Paul is changed the game in the NBA. Ben has proven that. Okay, so you asked a question about medical leave. Yeah, this is the tricky part with the medical leave, right? So this is out there from ESPN. The Sixers have been fining Simmons for missing games, practices, and meetings nearly $2 million so far this season. But there is a provision in the CBA that protects players' salaries for failing to render services if such failure has been caused by the player's mental disability. So this is where it gets a little crazy. Because now he is saying, look, I'm not mentally ready to play. And if he's not mentally ready to play, and that's his reason, essentially you cannot fine him. And this is where the rub begins. The stare down continues. Now, I think Daryl Morey and the Sixers are probably going to come to a sit down to say, look, let's just pay this guy and have him kind of go away for a little while. That is possibly where they're going to get to. 609-403-0973. Mike, Ben is a spoiled brat. With that said, he has all the talent in the world. If he wins back the locker room, that's enough for me as a fan. I just hope he worked on his free throw shooting this offseason. He is a little bit of a spoiled brat. But that being said, I agree with you. If he's genuine, now we don't know that. Tobias Harris came out and said all the right things. Hey, we will accept him back. If he's ready to come back and play, we'll accept him back. Is he just saying that? I don't know. He didn't have to tweet it. Tobias Harris didn't have to go on social media. Now, Keith Pompey from the Inquirer just tweeted this out, that there's an added barrier as part of enhanced securities at the Wells Fargo Center due to outrage with Ben Simmons, who wants to be traded. The barrier prevents fans from getting close to and looking down at players in the entrance area at the arena. So if you've ever gone to a Sixers game, there's that wall that you can look down to see where the players are parked. And a lot of people will stand at that wall and look for the players as they get to their car. Well, the arena has put a barrier in front of that now so that you cannot line up in front of that wall to look down and say, like, hey, Joel, what's up, Joel? Well, they don't think you're going to be saying hello to Embiid. They think they're going to be hearing some probably 4-letter language at Ben Simmons. I'm just saying.
Mike, do we even know if Ben Simmons is going to be there?
I would imagine he will not. Well, if he's there, I would imagine he will not be sitting on the bench tonight.
Yeah, he'll probably be somewhere away from all of that.
That's a good question, though. Like, what is he like? Did he watch the game the other night? Is that something that he cared about? Does he care if the team wins? Is he invested at all? Like, watching the team? You would think watching the team might help you get reinvested a little bit. Like, I know when I'm on vacation, like, I'm out of here. I'm on vacation. I don't care. But then you get back and you're kind of like, hey, I'm ready to go. Like, This is what you do for a living. Like, we got into this job because you love pontificating about sports. I don't care if you agree with me or not. It's my platform that I get to just give you my opinion. I don't care if you agree with my opinion, but that's what we love to do. So even when you're on vacation, you get to that point, you're like, I love giving my opinion and I love talking about these things. Ben Simmons has to say, man, I love it. I miss it. Right? Don't you think? Like, that's human nature.
You would think, but I just don't know, because the way everything has gone in his world over the last several months, I mean, who knows where his head is really at? I mean, if he's willing to go up in front of his teammates and have this conversation and talk to them about things, and that now the teammates are coming out and defending him, maybe there's something to this that, I don't know.
Now, what do you
man.
think of Dwight Howard's fire back at Jason Kelsey, by the way? Now, there's some professional athletes firing back at Kelsey.
Right.
Dwight Howard said, dude, play football and not basketball.
See, I hate that.
Instead of getting on TV and talking about this young brother, he could send him a message of support, positive vibes only.
See, I heard the same thing on another platform last night. Listen, we got to stop this. You can't pick and choose when you want athletes to speak out. If you want them to be able to speak out on whatever they want, you can't pick and choose when they're allowed to speak out. If Dwight wants to speak out on social issues, let Kelsey speak on Ben Simmons, period.
Over on our Facebook page, we asked you to describe Ben Simmons in 4 words or less. Well, the comments got out of control. So I'll ask you to text 609-403-0973. Describe Ben Simmons in 4 words or less. And I will read them right after football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. Ready, set, go. And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. New one is out this morning. Don't forget the Inside the Birds pregame show, 10 o'clock on YouTube Sunday. Jeff Mosher and this man, Adam Caplan. He is back for a Friday edition of Football at 4 here. Often imitated, never duplicated. There he is. Eagles Raiders should be an interesting one. This Raiders team 4-2, new coach. They won for the new coach, Adam. The Eagles got a lot going on this week that has kind of been under the radar because of one Ben Simmons.
Yeah, no doubt. The Ben Simmons stuff, Mike, is really fascinating. How about Daryl Morey going on record in local Philly radio about really what's going on, and that he's clearly not going to give him away, that he's only getting role players. I love it. You don't typically see, Mike, the general managers in sports ever go on the record to talk about the guys on the trade block. I thought that was good. So, yeah, but here's the thing. You're getting back to the Eagles here. You've got a situation, and we know a lot of fans are going to go to the game. We had a bunch of fans chime in on our we have a Facebook board. We've got a YouTube message board and comment board, and it seems like there are going to be a lot of fans there. It would not shock me if there are at least 5,000 Eagle fans at this game. That's kind of where the Eagles are here with their fans. And they travel well. And there are a lot of people I know from Philly who live in LA that Vegas flight's about a half an hour. I've taken that flight from LA to Vegas.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it'll be more than 5,000, by the way. You remember that game? You remember that game out in LA when they played the Chargers? How many were out there?
How about Sirianni being asked about it today? Isn't that funny? About the Chargers game?
Yeah. Do you remember that game? I mean, yeah, they got buried.
Oh, it was crazy. Yeah. But the Eagles, I talked to them when they got back. They could not believe how loud it was, particularly when LeGarrette Blount had that long run. Yep.
Yeah. There, Miami, they seem to do very well, too. I think you'll see a lot of fans out there in Vegas, and they'll see a new offensive line again, but maybe for the better. Lane Johnson is back, which means now, Adam, 3 of their week 1 starters are in the lineup. You got Jack Driscoll and Landon Dickerson at the guards. They did not start in week 1, but you got your center and your 2 tackles back, and you wonder how much that changes the offense.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a good thing, Mike. So Lane Johnson, they just wanted to make sure everything was right with him. You know, it had basically been about 3 weeks since he had played. So they eased him in. They worked him back in, and he felt good. And, this is one thing that you got to understand is this head coach is big on connecting with players. And so what's important to him, as Sirianni was talking about, connecting with Johnson and making sure that they're both on the same page here, and they are. So he's back there. Mailata now moves from right tackle to left tackle. Also, he's not on the injury report anymore. That's good. He was not even listed with the knee, which we know is an MCL sprain. So that's a good sign. Driscoll continues to start at right guard. He started right tackle before, we know that. Landon Dickerson will remain at left guard where he's starting to get comfortable. Now, I would also tell you that, and we put this on our show several months ago, probably, July. We were told, do not pencil in Landon Dickerson to replace Jason Kelce if Kelce retires. They will decide, these coaches will, Jeff Stoutland chiefly among them, what they'll do with Isaac Seumalo next year. He's out for the season, but when he's back next year, Dickerson in terms of who lines up at center and who lines up at guard.
That's, definitely something definitely interesting to keep an eye on, because how would you say that Dickerson is handling the left guard spot?
Well, he's getting better. Look, he's not perfect. He's got his legs beneath him. It's just technique-wise, there's some challenges that he has to learn. They're not doing it the same way they did it at Alabama. They do it differently at the NFL level. In fact, Trey Thompson, remember when Trey was on with us last year, Trey would explain that when it was on our pregame show, that the way that Jeff Stoutland teaches hand usage is different than most other teams do. So this is certainly a challenge for him, but he looks better each week. There's no question he's going to be a stud offensive lineman for the Eagles if he lines up at center or guard. It's just that because he's missed so much time in his career and he's learning what the stuff that he needs to learn as an NFL player, it takes time. You just don't walk in and become a star. I think sometimes there's unrealistic expectations, but there's no question he's going to be a really good player if healthy.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And Adam, I'm really interested in not only your answer to this, but to watch this on Sunday, how Dallas Goedert returning from the COVID list, how he will be incorporated in this offense. There is no Zach Ertz, who had 31 targets 31 targets that could have gone, to Goddard. They split those targets up. Not really. Ertz had 31, Goddard only about 20. So they weren't splitting the targets up. I know Ertz missed the game, but now all these targets potentially go to Goddard, and how that opens up, changes. There's been a lot of talk about Goddard this week.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you look at it now, with Ertz gone, Goddard now takes over the job full time. He just came off the COVID list, just under 2 weeks on it. He didn't practice yesterday. He did have a pretty good workout with the training staff. So that he worked some today in their light practice. He doesn't even have an injury designation, so he'll be in the starting lineup. Jack Stoll right now will be the backup. They brought back, it's so funny, Richard Rodgers, right? So he gets cut after the Ertz trade, and now he comes back to, he's not replacing Ertz, but he's taking his roster spot in a way. But he could. He's on the practice squad, and I would assume it's hard to dress only 2 tight ends for a game, so I would assume that there's a pretty good chance he'll be activated by 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, which is the deadline for the game to add players to the roster. So, yeah, it's now Goddard's deal. There's no question about it. I'll never understand the underutilization of Goddard, even with Ertz there, because Goddard is a different player. He's physically tough, as we know. He had a touchdown called back some weeks ago where he scored when there was a penalty on the play, but he's just really good. He's, to me, a top 5 to top 7 talent. Now, I know he hasn't always played that way, but in terms of talent and plus the injury history, it's held him back. And that's part of why he's not gotten the contract that they wanted. But he is on the final year of his rookie contract. The rest of the season is here. And remember now, the Eagles have gotten calls about him. That's definitely true. I know that story that's out there from my friend Jay Glazer put that out from Fox. It's absolutely true. Because he hasn't got his extension. The word gets around the league. People wonder, what are the Eagles going to do with him? But assuming he's going to be here the rest of the season, he's here to showcase his talent to get a good big deal from the Eagles. And they drafted him, Mike, by the way, as a 3-down tight end. He absolutely needs to get a bigger role, and he will go forward.
Yeah, 14.4 yards a catch. And one thing, for as look, Ertz is probably the best tight end in the history of the franchise. Yeah. He had the nickname No Yak Zach for a reason. He catch the ball and didn't do much. Goddard he breaks tackles. He's got some explosion. You wonder, I don't want to say that he's better than, I think what Ertz did so well, he was so savvy. He found the holes in the coverage. He got himself open. But Goddard can be a bigger play tight end.
Yeah, and the thing about Goddard, he needs to be, and where Ertz is terrific, third down plays to get a first down, being dependable, hands. And you talked about it, finding holes in the defense, and particularly in zone defense. Yes, Zach would go down and would not get the extra yardage, which I know would annoy some people. Goddard is exceptional running after the catch. He had one of the all-time catches that got called back, remember, against Dallas, and that phantom push-off, the 75-yard catch and run for a touchdown, which clearly was not a push-off. That was a bad call by the rest, but that's some of the things he can do. So Goddard right now, going forward, is going to be the guy. Jack Stoll, who's been a good story for them, just as a guy to show that he can play. And then, by the way, Tyree Jackson now is working. They're going to take this as far as they need to. Because remember, Tyree Jackson, though he's a great story, never played in a preseason game. And the only real practice time he had was in training camp. So they need to give him time to develop.
All right, a couple things here with Adam Caplan as we look at the Eagles and the Raiders. On the injury report, really the one name questionable, Anthony Harris. And number one, Harris is a new player, how he's fitting in on the defense. And if he could not play, what is the defense losing and how would they replace him?
Yeah, and look, he knows his defense because he was brought in here to help implement it with Jonathan Gannon, who knows him from their days with the Vikings. So it would be Marcus Epps, from what I understand, who would start for him if Harris can't go. Here's the troubling thing. So first of all, let's go back to last week's game, the Bucs game. So he gets hurt. He hurts one hand, comes back. If you're watching, his hand was wrapped. Okay, that's all we knew about one hand. So Wednesday's injury report, they list him with both hands being injured. And yesterday, though, he had a full practice. Today, he didn't practice today. And guess what? They added a groin injury to it, which means he must have gotten hurt in Thursday's practice. So now he's questionable. They don't know if he's going to be able to play. And again, Marcus Epps would be the likely fill-in. Epps is a good player. He's been a nice story for them. From what I understand, he's played well. So that certainly because of Darren Waller being on the other side. The Eagles typically do not cover the tight end well. They have their ups and downs against it. And by the way, speaking of covering tight ends, the Raiders are the worst in terms of giving up plays and also targets Eagles give up 9.3 pass targets per game to tight ends. So Goddard should have a huge game, no question about it. And the Eagles will give up run after the catch against tight ends in that zone defense where the safeties play really far back. So in the intermediate area where the Eagles linebackers don't play particularly well, that's where I think Darren Waller's going to hurt them.
That's interesting. In one area, too, where on the defensive side of the ball, you look at the Eagles' defense, and the Raider offensive line is a weak spot for them. And we know when the Eagles have had success this year defensively, John Gannon's defense has had success, Adam. It's been Carolina, Atlanta, teams that do not have very strong offensive line. So this is an area where you think the Eagles could win that battle is up front with their defensive line.
Yeah, I don't. Where the Eagles, Mike, should dominate, or at least they have a very good chance to dominate, would be in the interior. Cox and Hargrave versus the interior of the Raider offensive line, which is quite frankly not very good. They've got a first-time starter, John Simpson, the left guard. Center Andre James is not playing well. Right guard right now is Alex Leatherwood, who got moved in. He was playing at right tackle. He was their first-round pick, where a lot of people around the league thought they reached. So yeah, this is a problem. This is not good. No, the Eagles really could dominate there, and we saw what happened when they have an advantage. You saw what happened against Carolina. They took advantage and they absolutely dominated in the interior.
Yep, and they caused 3 turnovers in that game, and obviously you're looking at Carr and you're saying, hey, is this a guy who can turn the ball over? You look at Derek Carr against the Eagles secondary, Slay, Steven Nelson. Is Carr a guy that they can turn the ball over on?
He doesn't get a lot of turnovers, but when you pressure from the interior, like the Bears got him, he did not play well. So to me, it's for the Eagles to have a chance for a small upset. I can't believe the spread's only 3. They're going to have to get pressure from the interior. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I know people say a small upset here. That, like, before we kind of look at another matchup in this game, like the Eagles have won 2 games on the road. Is this a winnable road game for them?
It is, because here's the thing. Talking to the Raiders, I really believe that emotionally it's not going to be easy for them to get up for this game. It just would worry me if you're a Raider fan listening. It's just hard. First game without Gruden, they go on the road where they could bond a little bit in a divisional game. It was a huge game for them because, remember, they're trying to win the division now. They have a chance. Probably not going to do it, but they've got a chance. They're now tied for first place, and they had a dominant win from pillar to post. On the Eagles, what's going to happen here, they came out running with Josh Jacobs. And I talked to the Raiders. They felt it was Jacobs' best game this season. It wasn't a great game, but he did well enough. And they want to get Josh Jacobs going. The Eagles don't stop the run, giving up 4.4 yards to running back. So could the Eagles upset him? Yeah, but Jalen Hurts has to play an exceptional game. We didn't talk about it. He's got to play great. There's no way he plays average and they win this game. He's going to have to play in a great game for them to win on the road here.
Well, let's look at that then. The Raiders play a lot of cover 3, much like the Eagles. They do not blitz a whole heck of a lot. So does that play into the hands of what Nick Sirianni wants to do? Yeah,
and Gus Bradley runs his cover 3. This is what he does. He comes in, he's done it forever. And they give up intermediate area throws, whether it's a slot receiver. Of course, the Eagles don't really use a slot receiver. Where the tight end, Dallas Goedert. So I think there's an advantage there. It's too bad because the Raiders give up the most production to slot receivers in the National Football League. They give up a big catch rate to tight ends, 73%. As I said, most targeted, 9.3 games. So Goddard should have a big game. The other thing that you can do against them, the Raiders linebackers are fast, but they're not physical. This could be a Miles Sanders game. I know I must say it every week. I wind up being wrong, but all I'm telling you, Mike, is the opportunity is there for Miles Sanders. I don't know. I don't trust Nick Sirianni as a play caller. He's done nothing to show me that I could trust him. But the opportunity is there for the matchup. And let's go Miles Sanders. And then, defensively, there's some questions, but I think there's an opportunity here for an upset. I do agree with the point.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Miles Sanders because one thing, the Raiders have 2 very good pass rushers, but they don't stop the run very well. And this might be, Adam, a game where the RPO actually works to your favor.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to have them to have a conventional running game. What they're going in the interior of the Raiders is, Mike, they go with 3 journeymen, sort of veteran D linemen, and then they stick in Solomon Thomas, sort of a hybrid D tackle, but he's smaller. They got the 3 veterans there. So, yeah, there'll be an opportunity to run inside. And the Eagles, they had some problems with Vita Vea in this last week game. They gave us some interior pressure, but they don't have any. The Raiders don't have anyone who's stout as Vita Vea on the D line, and I do believe there's an opportunity there. I look, Sirianni's got to put the figure on himself. Yeah, Hurts is not playing well. No one's going to deny that, but help the quarterback out. Just mix in the run. I don't believe in establishing the run. I think that's nonsense. But you can integrate the run game. See what the Bucs do? They mix it in. It's not what they do, but it's part of what they do, and that's why even Tom Brady could use a run game.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think anybody in this day and age is saying 50-50, but give me.
But in the in the first half, this is all I'm saying. If you want to do it 66% of the, if you want to go 2/3, fine. But every 3 passes, sneak a run game and run it. Is it that hard? Not really.
So far, yeah, it has been that hard for Nick Sirianni.
You're right. I know.
Right? I mean, it has been.
Frustrating as hell.
I'll tell you.
And I'm not even a fan. Just as an observer who gathers information on this team, I scratch my head. Even Joe Banner probably doesn't like this.
Nick Shane Steichen this week, he kind of hinted at they want to use they want to get Goddard more involved. They want to run the ball more. I'm wondering if you had mentioned, I'm surprised that they didn't bring in a more veteran play caller. Not that not that Steichen's a veteran play caller, but are the assistants on that team saying, "Hey, Nick, you might need to reevaluate the play calling a little bit here"?
I mean, they're talking every day. It's just that something seems to happen on game day. It gets away from Sirianni, and I don't buy the excuse. Yes, in some games they're getting smoked. In the Bucs game, they're down 28-7. But on the first couple series, you're. It doesn't mean when the score is not out of hand you can't run it. It's just, there's nothing in Sirianni's background, Mike, that says that he wouldn't want to run the ball. That's why I'm so puzzled. Did he feel pressure when he got the job because of analytics and what he was told during his interview that he probably should be throwing the ball out? I don't know.
Yeah,
I would love to have an answer. Where they made a mistake is they didn't hire a senior offensive assistant to get in his ear. That's getting to your question. That's what we suggested. We were told it was discussed, but nothing ever happened. So, oh well.
All right, last thing, take a look at the wide receivers. Devonta Smith, obviously Rieger, and Quez Watkins has been kind of an up and down guy. He's got big play there, but Smith, how he factors into the game this week.
Yeah, and
we were talking to the Raiders radio side, and they said their secondary has been a mess.
Well, actually, what's interesting about this the Raiders is their secondary does not give up a lot. In fact, Casey Hayward's played really well. He's kind of revived his career under Gus Bradley. What they do, as I was saying, the Raiders give a ton of production in the slot. They're the worst team in covering inside receivers. The Eagles don't really have a true slot. They don't really get Greg Ward involved. The problem that you have is in this game with Jalen Hurts, and we've said this repeatedly, he throws to the right side too much. It's very obvious when you watch the game. Watch him. He rarely will throw to the left, which means he doesn't go with his progressions correctly all the time. It's become very obvious. He's not spreading the ball around because he's just, it's like 1.5 read to run, or he holds on the ball or throws it out of bounds. He's just not. That's why he seems to be lost a little bit lately. The Raiders safeties don't cover very well. The Raiders are down 2 corners in this game. Both are on injured reserve. So there's going to be some opportunities to get it if they protect and Hurts reads the defense well and gets rid of it on time. The Eagles could score well over 20. I'm just not sure if I trust a lot of the things that be going on offense.
All right, this should be after 6 games, you've had 3 defensive stinkers and 3 solid defensive efforts. This will be kind of like, hey, show me what you're doing here. Which direction? I'm interested in that. Last one for you. They had 10 days off here. It's kind of a mini bye, the whole self-scouting. Do you anticipate we see any changes personnel-wise, anything like that?
Yes, they probably will. We'll have something on our show. We'll put some stuff out on Sunday. Yeah, this is why I look at this stuff, because you're seeing a lot now with the teams gone off to bad starts. It might be cosmetic in terms of coverage. It might be personnel changes. We served, by the way, earlier with Eric Wilson, who bench is sometimes a hard word, but where they make a lineup change, where they reduce a guy's playing time. Yeah, I would expect some small changes, whether it's offense or defense. I definitely will expect something different that we haven't seen before, to answer your question.
All right, maybe more Davion Taylor, maybe a little bit
He played
more
a lot
Milton
last week.
Williams. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast. It is available now on all podcast platforms. And the Inside the Birds pregame show Sunday morning at 10 on the YouTube social media platforms of Inside the Birds. He is Adam Caplan. This is Football at 4. Thank you, Adam.
All right, man. Thank you.
He is back next Friday, InsideTheBirds.com. Check out their insight on the Eagles game. And don't forget, get all the Eagles coverage for the Eagles and the Raiders on our website, 973ESPN.com. All weekend long when news happens with the Eagles, you can get it from South Jersey's Eagles station. And Football at 4 is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at the Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. And, of course, you can book your game day experience today. Go to Caesars.com. I'm Mike Gill. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. Now, I asked you to text, describe Ben Simmons in 4 words or less. 609 403 0973. 609 403 0973. I'll read those off coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Describe Ben Simmons in 4 words or less. Coming up at 4:40, Pete Thompson is here for Happy Hour Friday. Casey Joyner, one thought every game. Jeff Kerr has the night off. We'll get you ready for the Sixers and the Nets, by the way. It's a fun game tonight at the Center. Brandon Scoop B. Robinson on game night tonight at 6:20 with Josh. And I'm Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. 4:28 on a Friday. I'm Mike Gill. What's up, everybody? Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Download the app. Take the show on the go. We've got one thought on every game coming up. What else is happening this weekend that I'm forgetting about? Well, we got college football Saturday, Penn State, Illinois, Notre Dame, USC, Eagles, Raiders, and then the Sunday night game, Colts and Niners. You can hear all those games on 97.3 ESPN. We got the Sixers and the Nets tonight. Now, I was going to go to the game. I decided not to. I just think it's going to be a circus up there. I just think it's going to be – I don't think Simmons is going to appear.
I don't think so either.
So I don't think you're going to see Simmons just to come out and wave or do anything. I don't think you're going to see him. I just think that there are going to be so many pent-up people. Even if he's not there, I think you're going to hear – bleep Ben Simmons, because it happens somewhere and because it's happened somewhere else. Right. Now these people want to do it here. They want to get their message to him that they're not happy. So I think you're going to see it. You're going to see and hear a circus at that game tonight.
Oh, I agree 100%. I just want to know from you. So can you give me a little more information? So is this something you've been going back and forth on? Were you going to go and then you're like, now I've decided not to? Did you decide this today? Did you decide this last night?
I was going back and forth. Number one, there's going to be a lot of media there.
Right.
And, the media still, the media still wear masks. Not that I'm an anti-masker or anything like that. It's just I don't like sitting there watching the game with the mask on.
Right.
And because there's so much media there, I'm not sure that I would be in the prime media seating because I'm not an everyday. You have the everyday beat writers and you have your national guys. There's only so much floor seating. And if you don't get a floor seat, you're way up top, which is okay. But for basketball, you're way up there.
Right. It's too far.
Yeah. So it's the weekend. I want to get out of here, go home, relax, have something, and just watch the game. I didn't want to fly from here, head up to Philly, do all that stuff. So I kind of made the decision that I wasn't going to go.
Also, at the end of the day, like you said, you want to unplug a little bit.
Yeah. I'm going a couple times next week. I'm going, let's see. What do I got on my agenda next week here? I am going to the game they play at home when? They play the Pistons on Thursday. I don't know that I'm going to that game. I'm going on the 30th. They play the Hawks. I want to be there for the rematch against the Hawks.
That's
I'll be
Saturday
there.
Night, right?
Yep. And I'll be there Monday when they play the Blazers, and I'll be there Tuesday or Wednesday when they play the Bulls.
So you got good options.
Yeah, I'm going, and then maybe Thursday. Nope, they're at the Pistons. So I got 3 or 4 games I'm going to go cover. It's good to be in the building. You get good information. You get to talk to some sources and all that kind of stuff and get some stuff. But I just, tonight's going to be a circus. I don't. In a way, I feel, all right, I'm going to read off some of these, okay?
Sure.
Describe Ben Simmons in 4 words or less.
This should be good.
Unprofessional, pompous, scared baby.
Sounds about the typical fan, yep.
Unprofessional I can go with.
Yep.
Pompous, to some extent.
A little bit, definitely.
Scared baby. Those are all pretty, they weren't derogatory.
No, they were very specific.
Ben Simmons in 4 words, a really lost dude.
I can agree with that.
I think that's spot on, dude. That is a rational answer. So you almost can relate to. This guy's just lost. He's a 25-year-old who has had nothing but success in his life. And he is now staring at the mirror in his opinion not his opinion. He is staring in the mirror of somebody who has been successful. And yet everybody around him sees a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And he's balancing why the heck was that?
Oh, that was the computer in the background.
All right.
Sorry.
He is trying to balance. I'm a 3-time All-Star. I'm a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I'm the Rookie of the Year. We've been a 50-win team. Why do people think I stink?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, also it's the fact that he has been hanging on to that resume as well.
Look, put it this way. I get into this job well aware that there are some people who just don't like me, okay? They don't like my opinion. They don't like my voice. They don't like what I say. They don't like how I present it, yada, yada, yada. There are going to be a good percentage. If it was 90%, I might have to reevaluate whether I'm the right for this job.
100%, sure.
But it's, there's, even if it's 50-50, but believe me, there are people who don't like me and they let me know it. There are also people that do like me and let me know it.
Right.
It balances out. But if it was like 90% of the people who were like, you suck, you're horrible, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, the whole you don't know what you're talking about doesn't even matter. It's not that part of it that is this job. This job is not knowing what you're talking about and yada, yada, yada. It's, can I present something, an opinion that you either like or don't like for 4 straight hours? You don't have to agree with my opinion, but if it was 90%.
Right. If 90% of the people said you weren't bringing anything good to the
every
table.
Every day that 90% of the listeners just texted in, called, tweeted. If it wasn't the same loser every single day, like the one guy who just like makes up fake Twitter accounts and like then keeps that's different. If it was 90%, you would be like, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
It's the same 50% that most people like. We're not dumb. Like, we know people don't like us. We know that people like are somewhat envious of, you're the guy on the radio and I'd like to have that job. You know what I mean?
Right. But the problem with Ben Simmons is, like you said, 90% of the people are all saying, Ben, you're not good enough.
That's where the rub is. That's where it's like, he's saying, hey, I'm pretty good at this job. And he has, instead of like, I know some guys don't like my game, 50% of some fans like me, some fans don't. No, he's at a point where like 90% right now are, I want you gone.
Right.
That is, I've never heard of such a thing before. Never.
But, and also at the same time, though, he's brought it on himself because, again, it goes back to, I brought stuff to you and others before. It starts with the LSU documentary.
Well, that would put him in a bad light to start.
Right.
This whole thing now, the mental aspect of it has put this into a very gray area, I feel like.
It's a gray area because I think a lot of people like Kincaid. I like the word Kincaid mentioned earlier. It's kind of taboo because people still don't know how to talk or handle these things properly.
That's true. How about this one? This is from Mike in Delaware. 4 words or less to describe Ben Simmons.
Okay.
Top 10 Sixer ever. Ben could fix a lot tonight if he just walks out there and takes what's coming. Then watch the boys from the owner's box. We need him back.
I think top 10 Sixer ever is
yeah,
extreme.
I mean, you got, I could rip off 10 probably. Barkley, Malone, Wilt, Iverson, Dr. J.
Embiid.
He's probably definitively behind Embiid at this point. That's 6. Bobby Jones. Mo Cheeks was a Hall of Famer.
Did you mention Tony?
Andrew Toney. I mean, he had a very short career, but
Billy Cunningham.
Okay. Hall of Famers.
Hal Greer. Dolph
Shays. I mean, he's probably in the top 15.
I could go with top 15, sure, but top 10 feels like a bit of a, yeah. But the guy is right there about the other point. If Ben Simmons just quote unquote, took his medicine.
You know what? That guy actually makes an interesting point. By the way, TTP Scotty 76 is heading to the game. He just tweeted at me. It looks like him and his son are driving up to the game. He's got a Sixer jersey on. He's got a Sixer jersey, it looks like from the Iverson era there. His son's got a little bit more updated version. Hope you have fun at the game tonight, Scotty. If you're on your way to the game tonight, tweet us a picture at Mike Gill Show. There you go, Scotty. Good job. I appreciate that.
You said Iverson era is the black Iverson?
No, it's a red. It's like Iverson era before they went to the black.
Okay, so like 1998. Or maybe,
yeah, it was right before they went to the black.
See, I'm a fan of the black. I know you're not, but
it just was so off-brand.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a nice, edgy look.
That guy's onto something, though, the guy from Delaware.
Yeah.
If Simmons doesn't play, he just gets denounced.
Mm-hmm.
Just gets hammered with booze. He waves, goes back behind. It's over with.
Right. He gets it done.
He gets it out. The worst would be out of the way.
Exactly.
Maybe that's the plan. Maybe that's what he does. Get the booze out, and then you can work on mentally getting past it. You've already taken the worst. The first blow is going to be the worst blow.
Absolutely. It's like
the death blow.
It's like if you ever hear those fights, people are like, hey, I'll give you the first punch.
Yeah.
Well, get it out of the way. Get it over with.
This hour brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets, take your profit. Find out how. PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. It's Happy Hour Friday. The PT is here. We'll have a little fun with him. Get his thoughts on Simmons, the Eagles. Fly Guys play tomorrow night, and more. Happy Hour Friday here on the Sports Bash. Pete Thompson's here. The PT is in the house. It is a Sports Bash Friday, Happy Hour Friday. I am your host, Mike Gill, at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. A lot going on in the world because the Sixers are back tonight. They are having their home opener. Pete Thompson, Ben Simmons will not play tonight. He is obviously out, but a lot going on surrounding the Simmons stuff. It seems like new news is happening almost like every 2 hours. Something starts coming out. How about this story with Keith Pompey? There are barriers up at the Wells Fargo Center so that fans cannot look over the wall down into the parking area in the event that Simmons does show up. They don't want fans to be able to see him come or go.
Well, I was up there on Monday night for the Flyers game against the Kraken, right? And
that for Dave Hackstall.
Yeah, I wanted to see Hack come back and get his butt beat. But it was interesting because our seats were in, I want to say 123. So we were kind of low, just on the left of the Flyers bench. And I looked over and I could see like plexiglass covering the tunnels that came out on both sides, both for the Flyers bench and the Seattle bench. And, I thought, that's something new. Like it almost kind of looked like the sneeze guard at the salad bar or the, the COVID protections that they put up now. But you also thought to yourself, well, they're probably doing that in advance of the NBA games too, both hockey and NBA games. So people don't, because we saw that video a lot last year, right? Or when fans were still in the building, like the breakdown of people pouring their popcorn or whatever over those tunnels where they can walk up. In the NBA configuration, if I'm not mistaken, the NBA visitors bench then exits to their left and goes out basically what I call the Zamboni entrance, right? It goes out that big entrance. It does not go up the small tunnel. The Sixers go down to the other end and go out what I call like they do go up a tunnel. The Sixers, when they're going to their locker room, they'll go up a tunnel. But the visiting team would go down to the end. You remember we saw LeBron James going that way. But anyhow, my point is that it looks like the Wells Fargo Center was trying to be uber prepared in unruly fan behavior. So, I mean, when you mentioned that, and I was driving home when you mentioned that Keith Pompey tweet, I, at a red light, called up the tweet because I wanted to see, is he talking about the inside the stuff or the outside the stuff? And I understand. So that's two layers then is my answer to that not only did they put the, I call them cattle gates, that metal, those metal barriers, that you see for crowd control everywhere. Not only did they put those up so you literally can't stand and look through the metal bars down to the player parking lot. That was one thing they did. But then the second thing they did was put up that plexiglass. So that to me is they're taking all the precautions, and who knows if Ben will even be there.
Yeah, well, I would imagine he won't be there. Now, today he did tell the team, there's multiple sources have confirmed that Simmons addressed Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid, and the entire team this morning, and he told them, I am not mentally ready to play, and I need time. Does that make this situation any different in your eyes?
I mean, you don't want to come off sounding callous or insensitive, but how convenient that now he's mentally not ready to play,
Well, it's okay. Here's the thing, Pete. How convenient is fair to say, but I think if you looked at this all along, that's been the problem. He just doesn't want to he just doesn't want to admit it. Like he doesn't want to play because he knows he's going to get booed out of the building.
Right. Was he mentally ready to play in Game 7? I mean, if those reports are true that Ramona Shelburne reported about that, he was trying to get out of that by saying he was in contact with a masseuse.
Well, did you listen to the rest of the Ramona Shelburne?
I have not yet.
All right. Well, I mean, this is another thing that we talked about this on Monday or Tuesday, which a lot of people really, the story kind of did not like the whole thing with his sister and the brother.
Okay.
Are you aware of that story?
Nope. No, I'm not. So it's news.
Well, right before the playoffs started, there was his sister, his blood sister, and his stepbrother, who was also his shooting coach.
Okay.
His blood sister claimed that she was molested by the brother.
Oh, God.
So this falls into his lap. Right. This falls into his lap right as the playoffs are set to begin. Now, he had said, I don't want to talk about it. He didn't want the team to address it. you got to imagine that was weighing on him in those playoffs.
Yeah, I would think so now that I hear the full story. And isn't it hypocritical of you or me to sit there and say how brave you are, Lane Johnson, to say that you needed a break for what was going on for Lane Johnson and the Eagles? But then the minute the guy on the Sixers says, I'm not in the mental right place, then to rip him or throw him under the bus, I don't think that's fair.
Well, it's the problem is how and why and the method that it took him to get here. Like, I'm not debating in my mind that he needs help.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The problem is he has tried to blame everybody else before the path got him to saying, I need help. And he doesn't even really say I need help as much as, apparently according to some of the reports out there is that he acknowledged that, everybody needed to do better. Him, everybody. Like, he feels like everybody blamed him. And he, I guess when he addressed the team, Pete, said, look, I made mistakes. You all made mistakes. Like, we all need to own that instead of just blaming me.
And so if I'm reading these reports right, it's he met with Doc Rivers, then he met with the medical staff, then he met with the teammates. Like, it wasn't just one big group. It wasn't like 30 guys were there and he addressed all of them, right?
I don't have that understanding. Now, Shams over at The Athletic reported that Joel Embiid today asked Simmons, why do you want to trade? And Simmons said that he is not mentally feeling himself and he needs time to get it right. Now, later on, Tobias Harris tweeted at Shams and said, we'll respect Ben's privacy and space during this time. When he's ready, we will embrace our brother with love and handle our business on the court. That's it. That's all. So Harris is now going out there and saying, hey, we will support this guy and we respect. So that tells me what he said in that locker room today
did reach some people. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I see what you're saying there. And I guess that's I thought I heard somebody else talking about too, like what a difference we are in 2021 than when we were 4 years ago, 3 years ago, even 2 years ago. Did you have this many cases of mental anxiety or mental stress? Did you have that many breakdowns? No, I don't think you did across sports. And where we are now, you have to accept it.
Listen to what Jason Kelce said, and now he's getting lauded by the Philadelphia fans. Play well, they'll love you. Well, now former athletes and current athletes are coming after him saying, stay in your lane, dude. Like, you don't know what. So it's like this whole back and forth of, look, I say the other day, to me, Simmons is 25 years old. He's experienced nothing but success for the most part. And in his mind, he has accolades of success. And yet people think he stinks. So you got this guy saying, wait a second, I got NBA coaches voting me onto the All-Star team, and I got Joe in Fishtown telling me I stink. Like, this doesn't add up here. Like, so there is this whole dynamic of, why are all these people against me? And look, anybody can acknowledge he needs to add to his game, but he is also a 25-year-old kid. Yes, pampered, spoiled, all of that stuff. But in the end, he is a human being that messes with your mind of, why do all these people hate me so much?
Now, because you were a former radio and you played music at one of your radio stations before here, what's the song that goes, how bizarre, how bizarre?
Yeah, that's the song.
Right, that's basically what this story is. Every day that you think something, okay, we got this figured out. Oh, wait a second. Wait, he's just going to have an individual workout. Wait, he didn't show up for the individual workout. And then today, my goodness.
By the way, Shams tweeted out, Simmons reported the shoot-around today. He was seen engaged around the team and that he has expressed that he wants to play, but he is not prepared mentally. So now yesterday, Pete, we only have about a minute. Yesterday, Daryl Morey has come out and said, look, buckle in. Yeah. We're going to go 4 years if we have to. He says we will not trade him for a role player. It's just unbelievable.
I know you didn't watch the show How I Met Your Mother, but that's like challenge accepted. That's what Barney used to say on How I Met Your Mother. That's essentially what Daryl Morey is saying. Oh, you think you're going to engineer a trade out of here? Challenge accepted.
I contend this. He says, look, I'm not mentally ready to play. The Sixers say they're about 500. And he says, I'm ready to come back, and helps the team start to play better.
And then he's the savior?
Right. Now, there's a stat out there today. I don't know that you saw this, Pete Thompson. I will try to bring it up for you as fast as I can in the 23 seconds I have before this show will tell me that I need to take a break. But let me bring this up on the screen really fast because I'm pretty fast at this. You know, I can produce, talk, and do all this stuff at the same time, Pete Thompson. Some people think that I have somebody doing it for me, but that's not true.
I've sat in
Ben
that
Simmons
chair.
and Joel Embiid have won 35 of 42 games played together last season. It's the best record by any team in the league. They won 83% of the games when they played together.
And that's it. That's it right there in a nutshell. That's why you, even with all the circus and all the atmosphere, that you want Ben Simmons to come back if he can.
Pete Thompson, Eagles, Raiders. Give me a pick.
I like the fact that the Eagles are traveling well out there. I like a lot of things about it. I'm just not ready to buy in on the Eagles winning this football game yet. I'm going to go 31-21 Raiders.
You're the first one against the Eagles. Sal Pal, Eagles. Rob Motti, Eagles. Andrew DeCecco, Eagles.
I'd be
Pete
thrilled
Thompson,
to be wrong. 31-21 Raiders.
Hey, when we come back, one thought. Every game, 10 seconds. Flyers, are they going to make the playoffs?
Yes. They look
good
great
answer,
the other night.
Pete Thompson.
There
you get to stay on the show.
Thanks, buddy.
See you Tuesday.
All right.
All right, final hour of the show on a happy hour Friday. Casey Joyner brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook inside Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. I'm Mike Gill. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. As you know, the Eagles play the Raiders this weekend, but we've got one thought on every game to go with it as well, and we bring in the football scientist from The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer, where you can check out all of his fantasy football, NFL, and football thoughts. Two great areas to get them, The Athletic, The Inquirer, and right here every Friday and Monday with one thought on every game as we take a look at the Eagles and the Raiders. An interesting matchup. Casey Joyner, welcome back, my man. How are you?
Great to be here. Looking forward to this game.
Ooh, man, we got 4-2 Raiders, 2-4 Philadelphia. Let's start with that. You look at 4-2, 2-4. Are these teams as separated as the records suggest?
I'd say no talent-wise. If you're looking at the Eagles and the Raiders talent-wise, I'm probably gonna. If you Bill Parcells used to say, if you drafted the old Eagles and Giants teams, you take half Eagles and half Giants off those clubs. I think it'd be about the same way that if you drafted these teams off of just these two rosters, you'd probably end up with roughly half the players off of each team in each roster if you were picking that way. So yeah, I think it's a closer game than the records would indicate.
Okay, so let's look at some of the reasons why then. I want to start with the Eagles' defense against the offense of the Raiders. And obviously the Raiders' offense, we don't know what the identity is going to be moving forward without John Gruden. So let's start there. What did you see from their offense last week? Any differences, anything they did more, less, or different?
Actually, I think it was their offensive coordinator who said, we're running the same system. We're not going to change systems midstream. He said we've got a system in place. And I think he was even trying to intimate that we might even be a little more aggressive without John calling the plays, which is odd because the Raiders have been one of the most aggressive play calling teams as far as downfield passes go. So I think they're going to be what they are. They built that roster for that. And the roster is like a classic Raiders roster. It's a lot of power running. It's a lot of vertical passing, and that's just who they are. And mind you, that works if you can do both of them.
Offensive line for the Raiders against this Eagles defensive front. You know, the Eagles defensive front, Fletcher Cox, and obviously Javon Hargrave's having a really good season. And I kind of sense, Casey, that could be a difference in this game this week because that Raider offensive line seems to be there for the pickings.
Yeah, I went through my grades this week. I look at offenses and I grade a number of different things, and pass blocking is one of them. And I came real close to giving the Raiders pass blocking a green grade. In fact, I might have to go back and change that before Sunday's game because it's just they really have struggled pass blocking well. And that's one of the things is that when you were asking them, I shouldn't say they should struggle, what they're trying to do offensively. If you're trying to go vertical, you're going to give your other team more time to get after your quarterback, and that's who they are and what they want to be. So they need to find a way. Maybe they need to channel some old Gene Upshaw and learn how to be the best holders in the league because they've got some problems. And I think the Eagles can exploit that if the Raiders do try and go with that vertical stuff, which I'm going to bet they're going to do given the matchup they have in the air.
Yeah, and you would think, hey, Philadelphia, when they have been successful this year defensively, it's against teams with weaker offensive lines. So what about behind them? The linebackers against Waller, the secondary against Ruggs and Renfro. Do they have, the right mix to kind of hold this Raiders? They scored, 34, 35 points last week. So can that defensive front win enough to compensate for maybe some deficiencies in the backside?
I'm looking at, I've got some numbers that I got from True Media. And for the Eagles in the last 4 weeks, they've allowed 427 passing yards on vertical passes. That's passes that are thrown 11 or more yards downfield. It's a middle of the league metric. They're allowing 11.24 yards per attempt. That's a middle league metric. So they're not terrible against the pass. And not only that, they've also picked off 4 passes. They have 4 picks on vertical passes versus 3 interceptions. So I think that they are actually pretty better set in the defensive backfield than I would have thought before seeing those numbers. They've held up better than the numbers would indicate. Some of that has to do with also, though, the teams are only throwing vertical against them when they can't run, because I'm more worried about the Eagles' ability to stop the running game than by the ability to stop the passing game.
Yeah, I know that Waller's going to be an issue here. How big of an issue will he be against these Eagle linebackers?
The thing is when I grade out the Eagles, and I'm looking at this is from Mind you, this is for fantasy football purposes. So the Eagles have rated well before, but I did drop Rodney McLeod to a green rated grade, which means that if I'm looking, green is the person that you want to go target. They've got Steven Nelson as a green rated. The Eagles have Steven Nelson as green rated, and they have Rodney McLeod. I mean, they've got two people in the secondary who you would want to go target this week. And I would think Waller would be somebody. This should be a week. I've been telling fantasy managers that Waller's a guy who you're probably going to see him get one of his 12 target games again, like he did early in the season. He's kind of gone along and done a little bit since then, but he really hasn't been an impact player. I think this is one of the weeks where he's going to be an impact player. So, yeah, we got to pay attention to that.
Yeah, I know the Eagles' defensive secondary, Anthony Harris is questionable. He doesn't play. You're going with Epps. But Slay and Nelson, the one game they moved Slay kind of all over the place. He followed DJ Moore around a lot. Do you follow Henry Ruggs around, or do you keep those guys where they are?
I would say Slay is probably going to be on Edwards, because Edwards and Ruggs, I mean, they're similar players. They're vertical receivers. That's what they do. They get up and deep. That's what they're trying to do. So I don't think, and plus the way Nelson has struggled in coverage, and his yards per attempt total has been pretty bad the past few weeks. The way he's struggling in coverage, I don't know that I want to ask him to do a whole lot more other than play whatever we ask you to play in this particular play. I don't know if I want to say, hey, I want you to move here, move there, and all that. So I would think that they're going to stick with who they're on because, again, both receivers have the same kind of skill set, so you don't really need to change things.
Yeah, neither team, by the way, blitzes all that much. This is two defenses that just kind of sit back, try to tackle in front, keep everything out there. Is that the right defense to play against the Raiders if you're Philadelphia and John Gannon?
I would say so. My biggest concern about the Eagles, though, I mean, the last 4 weeks, they've allowed 508 yards on the ground to running backs. Not counting if you're not taking just running backs, not quarterbacks, anybody else. 508 yards, 5 touchdowns, among the worst in the league in that category. And the Raiders do have an offensive line. They're a road grading offensive line. They like to do power running. And I think the Eagles are going to see a very heavy dose of that. So if I'm them, I'm as worried about having to stop that ground game, because if you can't stop the ground game and you can't get stopped at the front seven, you got to start pulling safeties up. You got to start being more aggressive in things, and then you're really going to get beyond the deep passes. So if I'm the Eagles, that's my number one concern.
Right. All right. Let's go over to the Eagle offense. They're going to get Lane Johnson back. Mailata is going to go back to left tackle. They don't run the ball a whole heck of a lot, but if Casey Joyner got to send a message to Nick Sirianni, is the message this week to run the ball?
It is. It seems like we have that conversation every single week. It's to run the ball, because the Raiders, I mentioned the Eagles allowed 508 yards on the ground in the last 4 weeks. The Raiders, 482 yards allowed on the ground. I mean, they're nearly as bad at stopping the run as the Eagles are at stopping the run. And the thing I don't understand, I keep reading that Nick Sirianni talks about how, okay, we're going to have, when we run an RPO, if the defense, if we pass the ball, we call that a run. We chalk it up as actually a running play, because we had a run or pass option. So we chalk it, see our running game's working. I'm like, that's not how, I'm not trying to tell an NFL coach what to do, but at the same time, if you're not effectively running downhill, if you're not effectively running inside, if you're only doing the read option plays, you're saying that's where our running game is, the defense is not attacking you in a certain way. They're not having to sell out to stop the run. They can just sit back and say, okay, do we read well or not? And you're not making them aggressive. And when they're aggressive, that's when you can counterpunch, run counter plays, run traps, go vertical. They're not doing those things. So this week, if I'm the Eagles, I just say, you know something? Let's just run a lot of inside zone. Let's run a lot of power and counter. Let's do a lot of things. Go attack this Raiders front, because they are just not good at stopping the run. And if you don't take that approach, you're just letting them off the hook.
Hey, Goddard's going to be all by himself, and the Raiders, from what I see anyway, struggle against the tight end. So Dallas Goedert back all by himself. No Zach Ertz. Is this a big game for Dallas Goedert?
Last 4 weeks, the Raiders have allowed 34 completions for 351 yards and 4 touchdowns to tight ends. Those are that's like arguably like the second worst, only to the Chargers in that category. They are terrible at covering the tight end. So they say Goddard's going to be back, and like I said, he's going to be back, but with no limitations to say this is who he is. I've mentioned that I think Waller could get 12 targets. I think they do the same thing with Goddard. Say, fine, we're going to give him 12 targets. That's what I'm doing. Running the ball at you, throwing balls to Dallas Goedert, and then whatever we do elsewhere, whatever we get out of Rager, whatever we get out of Devontae Smith, that's great. But that's what I want to do, is pound the ball, go vertical to the tight end, and see what we do there. Because I think if they do that, they've got a good chance to win the game if they'll take that approach.
Yep, and then obviously you have Jalen Hurts, and you wrote about Hurts in the Inquirer this week, and obviously he's got so much in his plate, but, how's he handling it? Can he be better? What can he be better at?
He's doing a fantastic job of rushing the ball. Right now, he's on pace to rush for 850 yards and 14 touchdowns. Per Pro Football Reference, there's only 4 quarterbacks in NFL history who've rushed more for more than 850 yards in the season. Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick, Bobby Douglas, and Randall Cunningham. And Jalen Hurts is also on pace to rush for 14 touchdowns. Cam Newton's the only quarterback to ever rush for 14 touchdowns. He's on a record-setting pace. It's a lot to ask out of your quarterback. I wrote about that in my Inquirer article that saying that Hurts is a great fantasy player because of it, but it is a lot of things to ask out of a quarterback. And I would think that eventually they're not going to ask him to run the ball quite that often, which is another reason they need to get the rest of the running game going. Because right now they're saying, we're running the ball. See, it's an RPO and we're running the ball. Yeah, and you're asking Hurts to do it. You don't want him to get 150 rushes in the season, because if he gets hurt, who you got? I mean, you don't have a backup to run what he's doing, and I mean, you're going to be in a really bad way. I think they need to start funneling more runs over to Miles Sanders for that reason alone. Again, you've got more running back depth, too. There's no reason to keep doing this, but there's 100 reasons the Eagles need to be running the ball more, and this matchup is just custom made for it.
We'll see what Nick Sirianni does this week. You had 10 days to kind of prepare for this game, and we'll see what Casey Joyner thinks about this one as the Eagles get ready to take on the Raiders. We'll get his pick and where the big matchup is, why this game will go one way or the other. That's coming up in just a little bit here. But first, let's get one thought on every game this week, as the Eagles and the Raiders is the game here on 97.3 ESPN. But we got a whole slate of games, so let's get into them this week. Let's start with Washington taking on Green Bay, and the Washington football team, their offense starting to struggle. Their defense still hasn't turned the corner, and Green Bay has really played well since that opening season loss.
They have. Green Bay has only posted one game with the 300 or more passing yards this year, but they've got 4 straight games of 100 or more rushing yards. They got 418 rushing yards in the past 3 weeks. Heineke's not played well. Gibson's hurt. McLaurin might be hurt. I mean, they're obviously already on a backup tight end. The football team's had 2 giveaways in 3 of the past 4 games. The Packers have had 9 takeaways the past 5. They're at home. I'm taking the Packers big on this.
Kansas City at Tennessee. Tennessee has had Kansas City's number in the Andy Reid era. They run the ball. Kansas City doesn't stop the run. The game's on the road, but Kansas City somehow is a big road favorite, 4.5. I kind of like Tennessee here, man.
Derrick Henry, Tractor Cito, he's insanely good. He's on pace to have 504 carries or 504 touches this year. Nobody in the NFL history has ever had 500 touches. James Wilder, 497, I think it was in 1984, is the closest. So I don't know that he can keep up that pace. But right now, teams can't stop him. I mentioned before, Chiefs defense doesn't want to get into Chiefs don't want to get into a shootout mode because they're 18-12 the last 4 years. When they get into shootouts, they're 29-3 when they don't. But Tennessee's going to get them into that. Tennessee looks like they're going to have Jones. Tennessee looks like they're also going to have A.J. Brown back. But I still think Kansas City just has too much firepower because that Tennessee secondary is abysmal. So I'm taking the Chiefs.
All right. One thought every game. Atlanta's at Miami. You know, if Atlanta wins this, they're back to 500, and Miami is having a dismal season.
They are, and Miami's got, I think Parker's banged up, and they've got some other issues too. So they're going to be, in fact, their secondary is so bad, they may have to go with Noah Igbenogany. I've been practicing that name, Noah Igbenogany, as their backup. In fact, he's hurt too, though. So they may be down. They could have 3 cornerbacks. Their cornerbacks are banged up, even though they're healthy. Falcons, they had the best showing of the season last week. Miami's got tons of problems. Miami's rushing game is, besides they've had 77 or fewer rushing yards in all but 1 contest this year. The Falcons are getting healthier. By the way, Falcons 10 days off. Dolphins are coming off of a trip to London, so on a short week of a trip to London essentially. So add that up, and I really like Atlanta's one.
All right, New York, the Jets are heading to New England. New England is obviously not the same Patriots team that we have all grown over the last 20 years with, but they're facing a team coming off of bye, and the Jets, who obviously have struggled a lot this year. So this game seems to be Patriots, even though they're not the same Patriots team.
I think people are thinking the Jets are better than they are because to beat Tennessee in Week 4, they lost a close game to Atlanta in Week 5, but take away the Week 2 game against the Patriots, a game they lost 25-6. The Jets have rushed for fewer than 66 yards, or 66 or fewer yards in every game. They posted 207 or fewer passing yards in all but 1 matchup this year. Last 2 weeks, 51 points, 58 first downs, 880 offensive yards allowed. You're going into New England to face Belichick after coming off of his worst, the worst defensive performance in Belichick history. I feel for Zach Wilson. New England wins that big.
One thought every game. The Giants banged up all over the place. Carolina's lost 3 straight. They're a road favorite in this game after losing 3 times in a row. They were everybody, this Carolina team looks for real. do they get back on track against the Giants?
Last 3 weeks, they allowed 245 rushing yards and 91 points, and they allowed 571 yards to the Vikings last week. But let's face it, the Giants, the defense hasn't done very well either, but the Giants are so banged up. Barkley, Galladay, who else are they missing? I mean, they've got a ton of injuries. Tony's out. They just got injuries all across the board. And I just think that Carolina, because of the injuries, that closes whatever talent gap they have. So I've got them winning a close one.
All right, one thought, every game. Cincinnati can finally prove the doubters wrong. They're going to Baltimore. It's going to be a tough task, but Cincinnati 4-2, and I feel like no one's taking them serious. Do they prove the doubters wrong, or is this too tall of a task?
One of these people keep thinking of them as this great offensive team, and yeah, they've got tons of offensive talent, but their defense has played very well, and but the defense has played very well overall. The thing that concerns me, they've allowed 123 more rushing yards in 3 games. They've had 67. They've allowed 67 or fewer yards in the other 3 games. So the rush defense is kind of hit or miss. I don't want to be in that place. So I'm going to face Baltimore, where it might be a missed defense, because Baltimore can make your run defense look really bad. So add that to being in Baltimore. I got Baltimore winning this one close.
All right, one thought every game. Let's go to L.A., where the Rams host the Lions. This is Goff versus Stafford, and obviously a mismatch in talent. Detroit hasn't won yet, and I feel, Casey, they have fought hard, but I feel like at some point that runs out, and then the blowout happens. This feels like the one.
Yeah, it does. You'll find that. I remember Jeff Fisher back in like the early 2000s. His team was in a really bad way injury-wise, and he got in the fight really, really hard for like 4 or 5 weeks, and then there was a game where they ran out of gas, and then the season just went collapse. I think you're spot on there. The Rams were 14.5-point favorites earlier this week. They're 16.5 now, at least at last check. So, I mean, the Lions just have all kinds of issues. And plus, I just think that McVay and Stafford, they're just going to want to stick it to Detroit. There's going to be extra motivation. I wouldn't be surprised to see them staying into the fourth quarter. So I think the Rams win this by a mile.
One thought, every game, another lopsided spread anyway. Houston, they won that game. They fought hard a couple times, and now it feels like they're losing pretty handily here in Arizona, 6-0. This is not the team at home, by the way, Arizona is, that you want to run into if you're Houston.
Yeah, it's not a classic trap game for Arizona, because as much there's so much, they have so much more talent than Houston, that even if they don't play their talent level, they're still that far ahead. Plus, I think Arizona right now still feels like they're not getting enough respect. So you can easily go into that kind of a game. And Davis Mills, he had the terrible game against Buffalo, and he played better. He looked like Davis Mills again last week, and Davis Mills is not going to beat this Arizona team. So Arizona by another mile.
All right, Tampa Bay, another double-digit spread in the NFL. They're at home, Chicago. If Chicago wins, they are, probably going to be a wild card team if they can win. I think they'd be 4-3 if they're to win this game. Tampa Bay, they kind of went through the motions against Philly on Thursday night, but this feels like Tampa Bay again, and Chicago comes up short.
And Tampa Bay has not played their best football. A lot of times when a team gets into a trap game situation, it's because they've been playing really well and they'll face a really bad team. But Tampa Bay has been like, hey, we haven't done as well as we can this year. We've got weaknesses, and there's things that the coaches say, hey, you need to step this up. The players are going to understand that. And Matt Nagy tried to tell us Justin Fields wasn't ready for prime time. People didn't believe him. Well, I can think they kind of believe him now. He's a very limited quarterback. They haven't even posted 200 passing yards a game this year. They scored 20 more points only once, and that was against the Lions. So I've got Tampa by a third mile.
One thought every game. Indy, San Francisco, Wentz, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. San Francisco banged up again.
Yeah, but Indianapolis, they're going to be, looks like they're going to be without T.Y. Hilton, and they add that to the other injuries. They're going to have Zach Pascal and Michael Pittman. That's going to be their top receivers. That's tough. But again, San Francisco is banged up, and the 49ers have, they lost 3 straight after starting year off 2-0. The Colts won 2 out of the past 3, and I think the Colts they've got a better rushing attack. I got to put the breakaway ability of Jonathan Taylor, and they still have Marlon Mack, who can give them who looks like he's a guy who definitely wants to be traded on the high side of things. He's playing that well. I think that's going to be enough of a difference. And the Colts, by the way, generated 12 turnovers on the year, and they have at least, their defense has generated 12 turnovers, and they have at least 1 in every contest. So I think that'll be the difference.
One thought every game is back on Monday with a look at the Monday night matchup between New Orleans and Seattle, which has got some interesting storylines. A lot of buys this week: Buffalo, Dallas, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, LA Chargers, and Jacksonville all off. And, of course, Philadelphia takes on Atlanta. So give me the matchup in that game that's the difference maker of why you like one team over the other.
The difference maker is the Raiders will run the football against the Eagles defense, and the Eagles won't run the football against the Raiders defense. And that will be the difference because the Raiders will be successful when they do that, and the Eagles will keep trying to count those screen passes and RPOs as running plays when they really shouldn't. And that's going to be the difference because they're not going to take advantage of the Raiders defense, Raiders weakness the way that they should. So I got Las Vegas by a touchdown.
All right, Casey Joyner is back on Monday with one thought on all the Week 7 games, which you can hear Eagles and Raiders, Colts and Niners, Monday Night Football, all right here on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, Casey Joyner at KC Joyner TFS on Twitter. And you can check him out at The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer and right here on the Sports Bash. Casey, enjoy the football.
Appreciate it.
All right, there he goes. Casey Joyner, NFL, of course, every Friday with the football scientist, Casey Joyner, here on the Sports Bash, where we take you till 6 o'clock tonight. Scoop B, Brandon Robinson, going to be joining Josh on game night to give us more insight on Ben Simmons, because Simmons will not play tonight, but I'm sure Scoop B has some insight and some thoughts on the matter. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play. You can message us right through the app on your phone, as many of you have done so today. I want to read off one right here from Hal in Delaware, who says, the Raiders without John Gruden are a better team. Thought any season teams can progress or digress. I feel the Raiders and Derek Carr are better now, and I'm very excited about that. You know what, Hal? I was never a Gruden guy. I thought he was a fraud and a half. So you might be right. They might be better without Gruden, who I think was an overrated blowhard for the most part. You want me to tell you how I really felt about Gruden? I just don't think he was all the hype. He won that Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, and because of it, he got way too much credit for him as a coach. He's just an average coach, and that's okay. I'm not saying he's a lousy coach. He's just an average coach. What do you got?
Which random coach to win a Super Bowl would you rather have, John Gruden or Brian Billick?
Well, Billick is interesting because he was a defensive-minded coach
He's
or an offensive-minded coach who won with defense. So I'll give you credit. You stayed in your lane. You knew, like, okay, we don't have the offensive talent. I'll go and let my defense win it for me. That's okay.
So if you had to pick between those two guys right now, you would give me Brian Billick.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Those Baltimore teams stayed pretty good.
They were okay.
Yeah.
The problem with Billick
they couldn't get a quarterback.
Well, that was part of the problem. Billick kept telling everybody how smart he was offensively, and he kept, floundering the quarterback position.
Yeah.
He messed up the whole situation with Dilfer. Dilfer didn't want to come back. He's the guy who got them to the Super Bowl because apparently him and Dilfer were arguing on play calling. He brings in Elvis Gerbach. That went completely sideways.
Yeah, they put a lot of money into him too.
Then they brought in Randall Cunningham. And they told Randall, you know what? We're going to go draft the guy. We won't bring you back, even though he played well for them. And then they drafted Kyle Bowler. And
well, that's not Billick's fault.
Well, Billick was the guy who said they draft Kyle Bowler.
Well, then that's a problem. We'll say he's not the GM of the team.
Yeah, but they asked him, who do you think we should draft? And, remember, Bowler was the guy, his mechanics are amazing.
Call Jenkins and Heating for heating and air conditioning installation service and maintenance, plumbing, drain cleaning service, 641-6440, jenkinsplumbingheating.com. All right, Sixers and Nets tonight. You can hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN. Tom McGinnis has the call. We'll get into that coming up, plus my pick on the Eagles and Raiders, some of the matchups to watch there. I got it all next. 5:30 Friday, happy hour Friday. You got anything big going on this weekend? You're going to the PFL next week. You'll be out next week for a couple days at the PFL fights. You'll be on South Beach.
Yeah, well, I'll be near South Beach.
Not quite South Beach.
It's I think it's actually called Dania Beach is where I'll be near.
All right.
A little north of South Beach.
So what's the college football NFL slate? What's got you?
One of the things I'm excited about this weekend is when you have bye weeks in college football, it allows you to pay attention to maybe some teams you haven't got a lot of time to focus on.
Right.
And one of them this week is my pick of the week. I'm excited that I actually get some time to actually watch a little more Army. Because me, I'm always picking, everybody makes fun of me. I always picked, the military academies. I rock with them for my betting picks and stuff. And I haven't watched a ton of Army this year because there's been so much that's going on with. They're 4-2, Mike.
All right. Well, that wasn't the game that I thought you were going to go with. Now, there's a couple games that I do like this weekend that I'm kind of interested in. That I'm just like, all right, I want to kind of like get into the game. Now, Saturday is what is it? Penn State, Illinois. I don't have a lot of interest in that
Illinois
game.
at noon.
Yeah, I'm not a Penn Stater, so I'm not really like on to that game. There was two games.
Penn State should beat them up pretty good.
Yeah, they should. There's two games that I kind of am interested in here. The one is
tickle your fancy.
Yeah, where did it go? There was two of them that I was like, oh, I'm looking forward to that game. One is, Notre Dame's playing USC, and USC's not very good this year either, so that game doesn't really have me. Maybe it was next week that I saw. Where did I see? UCLA, Oregon is one game I'm kind of intrigued by. Now, this is
College game day is going to be there.
Yeah, because Oregon is the only ranked team in the pack, right? And
correct.
UCLA is where's this game?
It's at Westwood. Well, it's at the
right. I think UCLA is favored in the game.
They are favored. They're a small favorite. So here's the deal.
So I was surprised by that. So that's one that I'm kind of like, all right, I want to watch this game.
Quick background: Chip Kelly's team, they had not won any games before this year to any teams outside of the Pac-12 who were Power 5 schools, and they beat LSU earlier this year.
There it is, 3:30. You got it.
Now, them beating LSU doesn't look as good now because LSU's had a rocky year. They also beat Hawaii. And then they went and lost to Fresno State. And so they've had a weird year this year. And Oregon as well, too. They went to Ohio State. They took them out. Then CJ Verdell gets injured. Thibodeau gets suspended for the first half of that game. And then they lose a game that they should have won. So you have two teams that started the year smoking hot who are both kind of coming into this game trying to find themselves.
Yeah, that was so the other game must be next weekend because there's not another game on here that I'm like, that's the one. I was Oregon is at UCLA. That's one. So that's something I'm going to be into. Flyers play tomorrow night. So they are off tonight. They play tomorrow night. Now, they beat Boston 6-3 the other day. So people were kind of, all about that.
With the backup goalie in the net, by the way.
Yeah, but, I thought the big story in the game was Atkinson. He has kind of been what Voracek is not. I mean, he's a guy who's willing to shoot the puck. Voracek, I'm not saying he stinks, but he was a guy on this team that they already had a couple of those guys. They needed a guy who was willing to rip it, and so far Atkinson has ripped it. I mean, he's got a couple of goals. He's scored in every single game so far. So I think Cam Atkinson so far has been a night, when you look at the trades and how the new faces have performed where they are from what I've seen so far. Now, I haven't watched every Flyers game from start to finish, but I listened to the game on the radio the other night. Atkinson, I saw the other night. I actually tuned in when and saw both of his goals. But I'll tell you the guy for the Flyers that really, there's two guys right now that really stand out. One is Farabee. Looks like he's the real deal. Like he looks like he is a guy who could be a 50-point guy for this team. So that's something that you're hoping for, right? And then Yandel, I think as a veteran blue line power play guy, has added something to this team that they've really, really lacked.
I remember being on the air on Saturday when the Atkinson-Voracek deal went down, and I was over the moon. I was so happy that they got somebody who was not Voracek for Voracek. And the deal has paid off so far in numerous ways on and off the ice. The Yandel move you brought up is very interesting because it was very under the radar. But I remember when Yandel got interviewed by NHL Network after he signed with the Flyers, and he said that one of the things he's looking forward to is being a part of the culture and doing whatever they need.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that now. He's a guy who talks to the players on the bench. He's a very high-level passer. He understands ice spacing. He's just one of those guys I think is really going to help this young defense corps that didn't have a lot of veterans last year. Scott Laughlin was on with me last week, and he mentioned it. He said the loss of Niskanen really hurt the Flyers' defense. And now you have guys like Yandel and Ellis back there, and it changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah. And then you got the Sixers tonight against the Nets, which is really, forget the fact that Ben Simmons and all this is going on. And I got some text messages on Simmons I want to address here because I think some of the messages are just sad to see, actually, some of the people's thought processes out there. But, Brooklyn is a team that everybody thinks is the favorite. I watched Brooklyn the other night against the Bucks. Now, I get it. The Bucks are the defending champions. I look at Brooklyn and wonder, is this team deep enough?
They're not. I will answer that immediately because they added a bunch of old dudes this offseason. They tried to do the Miami Heat thing.
Yeah, I'm just not impressed. Like Harden and Durant, great, obviously. After that, I don't like that team all that much.
But how could you be? There's nobody on that team after those two that you look at and you be like, yep, I can trust that guy. Yep,
Yeah.
I can rely on that guy.
Yeah, I don't know that I love Brooklyn. Now, they don't have the great size to match up with a guy like Embiid. I'm imagining Embiid will play tonight. I know he's questionable with the knee problem. Who's going to defend Durant? This is where not having Simmons will come into play. Who defends Durant?
Yeah.
Who defends Harden? You say, okay, Thibault, he can't defend Durant. He's not the right guy for Durant. I don't think he's up for the task for Harden. This is where not having Simmons will show up tonight. Tonight will be a night where you're like, we're in trouble defensively.
I think Thibault can deal with Harden a little bit because Harden
bit.
He doesn't look 100% still. Harden still looks a little slow on the first step. So I think Thibault could manage that. But they have nobody. There's nobody on this roster that can look Durant in the eye and be like, I can make life a tiny bit difficult.
Right. No, that would be Simmons. Simmons' role is to defend a guy like Durant. Now they don't have that guy. Mike, you're always spinning it for Ben. He's the victim. Boo-hoo. Millionaire's feeling got hurt. Like, this is what bothers me. People look at people's salary and equate that with happiness. And that because you make this salary, I don't care that your life isn't where you want it to be. Like, what somebody makes in this world does not equate with where your mind is. So, you like to say because you have money, you're not allowed to be human is a very, in fact, like the text message here says Ben using mental health as a way to get his money when we all know that that's not what it's about is disgusting. I would suggest it's suggesting that someone doesn't have I think it's clear and obvious that Ben Simmons has mental health issues.
I agree.
If you are thinking he's using it as an excuse, something's wrong with you. Ben Simmons is clearly has mental issues. Did you not watch the playoffs last year?
Mike, I said it for weeks after the Game 7. You look in his eyes. There's something wrong.
There's 100%. If you watch you could be the biggest Ben Simmons hater there ever was and watch him in the regular season and then watch him in the playoffs. And you would surmise if you had an infantile brain, something's not right with this guy.
Something's not adding up.
Something's not right. The only answer here is that Ben Simmons has mental issues. And that doesn't mean he's got mental issues where he needs a straitjacket. I mean, he's not like mentally a danger to himself. There's different levels of mental issues. He's got something in his life, regardless of the money that he signed for, that he needs to talk about and discuss. That is clear and evident. And for someone to say that he's using it as a way to get his money, how disgusting it is. We cannot equate money to people's happiness. Haven't we learned that in this world? Haven't we lost enough famous people to depression and anxiety? People who have money at the yin yang. You know what money does? It causes problems. You know, there's a reason why in a lot of rich areas, there are kids who find their way into drugs. Why? Because they look for attention from their parents, and their parents say, here's money. My parents don't give me attention. They just give me money. Money gives them what? The freedom to go out and buy stuff at an age they're not mature enough to buy things. That's Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons has money. He's not mature enough to handle the money, and he's got stuff going on in his life. To me, it is clear and evident that the one thing that we should know is that he has mental issues. The fact of the matter is this: he's not mature enough to admit it yet. That's the problem. And now that he's coming out and saying it, yeah, it might sound like a ploy to get his money. Here's the problem. He didn't want to admit it first and foremost because he's embarrassed.
Right.
So he tried to take every avenue possible to avoid saying what anybody with half a pea brain out there could see. Ben Simmons has mental issues. And if you can't see that, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and realize, am I that dumb that I didn't see this? Because Ben Simmons should have admitted this from the get-go. But he was embarrassed. He doesn't want to come out and say it because you got idiots like this guy texting in saying, well, you make millions. You're not allowed to have mental issues. And guess what? You are more inclined to have mental problems because you signed for big money. You know why? Because with money comes pressure. And guess what? Not everybody can handle the pressure. Not everybody is equipped to say, I signed for the money. Now, you might say, then don't sign for that. Guess what? Anybody who gets a $30 million a year contract put in front of them, you're going to sign it.
Exactly. People, first of all, the last part you said, people act like this guy doesn't deserve this money. Well, then the team shouldn't have paid him that. You are always worth what someone's willing to pay you. You never say no to more in this life. It's just the way it is. Now, back to the Ben Simmons mental thing. To me, I've always said, and you heard me for months, Mike, I said Ben Simmons needs to see a shrink, a psychologist. He needs to get a Bible and find Jesus. I don't know what it is, but he needs something. I've said it 100 zillion times at this point. I hope Ben Simmons getting up there saying this means he's going to get help. And if he gets help, then I feel more comfortable about the situation because to me, that means that something is getting fixed. You can't go forward with the Sixers situation with Ben Simmons being the way he is, because if you are another team, Ben Simmons has lesser value if he's not fixed than if he is fixed. If Ben Simmons gets fixed, then teams are going to want him.
This text message says, having anxiety isn't the same as suffering from mental health. Let me read you the definition of anxiety disorders. Anxiety disorder is the most common of mental disorders, and it affects nearly 30% of adults at some point in their lives. Anxiety disorder is the exact definition of a mental issue. It is a form of a mental disorder. You are looking at mental illness as someone who needs a straitjacket or needs to be put in some clinic. No. You can't control when there are people that I know very closely who have panic attacks, anxiety issues. We don't look at them people because, first off, they don't make the money that Ben Simmons do. They're just regular Joes, and they have panic attacks, and they have anxiety in their lives from their jobs or whatever. It has nothing to do with the money they make and all this stuff, and they can't control it. Do you think these people say, man, I really wish in Game 7 of the NBA playoffs that mentally I can't handle it? Of course they don't want to say that. Of course they don't want to say that. And that's the problem here. Ben Simmons does not want to say that he has anxiety or that he has a mental issue. So he's come up with every excuse in the book to try to deflect it. And all of those excuses are frivolous because they don't add up. The only thing that adds up is he's got some mental issues. And that's why today, him saying that, people are like, huh, okay, Now, the problem is he has said X, Y, Z, Q, R, S, T, U, and V to finally get here. If he just would have said this from Jump Street, we probably have a different situation.
Probably. But at the same time, it's part of his immaturity. The fact that he was having trouble accepting some of these things.
Well, nobody wants to accept, Josh, and I hate to cut you off, but nobody wants to accept that I have the mental problem. Like it's this scar on you that you have mental problems. Nobody wants to admit it, even though it's much more common now. Lane Johnson, just nobody wants to be the guy that has to come out and say, this is why I did not perform to the level that I typically could. So he said, I don't like the coach. I don't want to play with Joel Embiid. I don't like what he said. I don't like what he said. The coach backed you all along the way. You and Joel Embiid have the best efficiency rating in the league. You have the best record in the league. These things can't be true. The one thing that can be true is what he said today. I am mentally not ready to play.
That's the most acceptable answer that we've heard the whole time.
Text message 609-403-0973. Matt and Kate make courthouse. Mike, I'm happy Ben finally told the truth. It's the first step in the right direction for him and everyone involved. You know what? If he is in fact truthful and is willing to get the help that he needs, I can see him returning to this team. Yesterday, I wasn't sure I could see him returning. The fact that he finally admitted what we all, well, not people that text message who think because you have money that you're not allowed to have mental issues, but anybody with half a brain, it was clear and obvious that this guy had mental issues, and that's okay. It's okay. If he admits it and he's willing to get the help, I could see him joining this team sometime at All-Star break, helping this team out. Hey, we're 500. We need a little help. Ben Simmons comes back. The team starts playing better, and it repairs the relationship because he was willing to tackle it head on. Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. All right, we'll get ready to wrap up tonight's show. A couple things before we go. This was Tim Bontemps today talking about when he thinks the Sixers could trade Ben Simmons. About 4 more months, he said. Well, right around the trade deadline. I wouldn't be surprised by that either. If right around the 4-month mark, trade deadline comes, because what I think is the best scenario for the Sixers is to hold Simmons and let other teams' stories start to emerge. This team's not as good as they hoped. They got an injury. They're better than they thought, and now we need another piece to put us over the top. There's so many more things that can happen with the other 30 plus the other 29 teams in the league. Let their stories play out, and then let them say, hey, listen, we're better than we thought. Can we get Ben? We're not where we want it to be. Can we get Ben? We had an injury. We need to replace that guy. Can we get Ben? That's the best way for the Sixers to play this right now.
It's always a lot easier to have somebody come to you than have you chase them for a deal.
Kendrick Perkins today on what he thinks the statement is from the Philadelphia 76ers. He said this morning. Very interesting when Big Perk has to talk. Hear what he had to say here. Miserable. Well, today he took a step towards possibly getting closer to the court, and it might not be today, their next game, or even this month, but maybe a step in the right direction. Josh has game night next. More with this. Brandon Scoop B. Robinson will join him at 6:20. I'm back on Monday, everybody. Have a great weekend.